Well, hello, everyone. Good to see you all on a Thursday evening, or day, or night, or wherever you are in the world. We are here to play some Star Trek adventures, specifically Star Trek Pioneer. This is the second chapter. We had some previous experience with some of these characters and their lovely little ship, and the many, many NPCs that they are friends with / have a burning jealous hatred of. And we ended the prior chapter on a bit of a high note. There were some lovely, strange new worlds and very, very unusual new beings and potentially galaxy-shaking discoveries. And we will actually be picking up shortly after the end of the previous episode. But before we do that, folks should probably introduce themselves. Tell us who you are, where people can find you, and a little bit about your character. And I'm curious, having had a bit of time to reflect on the events of our prior 3 episodes, what your character's headspace is as we begin the action. Let's start in order of the screen. So, Hell.
Hi, my name is Hell, or Hell Has Some Fury. You can find me on Twitch Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'm playing Elden Ring because I like pain, I guess. And the character that I'm playing in this iteration of Star Trek is Dr. Miyazi Pren. I am a Trill, as you can see, and I did not get to be joined, and I am insanely jealous of the captain of the Pioneer because he's a joined Trill. We encountered some alien life forms, which my character, I think, never really expected to be part of First Contact, and she was like super excited to do it. And then we found some disturbing medical information, and I am also extremely worried about that.
Yes. So you have a lot on your mind, a little bit of maybe ambivalence.
Yeah. Some
Cool.
Good things, some bad things.
All right. Misha.
All right. I am Misha Lesson3 here on Twitch. You can find me on Twitter at @MishaWeha. I don't really stream, except you do find me here and modding for the Juicy TV program. So in this game, I am Lieutenant Commander Dr. Tristan Ellis. He had a pretty good time last time. He's pretty familiar with Bajor culture and stuff like that. And a lot of the stuff we were looking into was pretty interesting regarding that. He was leading the team, the other command team on the other like constructed space station planet, if I recall. And, boldly went further in, talked to some other aliens there, a different type of First Contact. That was pretty neat. I'm pretty sure we opened a wormhole. So that definitely has some repercussions. Also, his headspace is probably not great because he, along with the other 2 people he went with, their bodies were entirely reconstructed out of some sort of alien material that the alien said was completely identical. But is it? I don't know. Probably not great for him personally. Lots to think about, the whole Ship of Theseus thing, I'm sure, running through his head a few times.
Yes. Rith.
Okay, I am Rith. You can find me pretty much here and only here on the C+ content. I am not a streamer outside of this, but I am happy to join and play some great tabletop games. I am playing Lieutenant Commander Sorbach. He is the newcomer on this crew, and I'm excited to see how he folds in. This is all going to be kind of new to us players. I can see that Zero's got a devious plan up his sleeve to all pull it in. So I'm very excited and happy to be along for the ride.
Awesome. And Cal.
And I'm Kelly, or My Fair Kelly. So you can find me on most social medias. I sometimes stream New job makes things hard, but if I do stream, I'm usually doing a variety of games or I'm playing D&D. Mostly you'll find me here at C+ content though. Other than that, I am playing Lieutenant Commander Kadira Adir, who is a Betazoid who is still trying to forgive themselves and thought they could, prove themselves worthy during this mission, and they may have just done the opposite. So they're still kind of kicking themselves in the butt and probably have more guilt than they would openly admit.
I mean,
back to the start.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of were like, don't go near the ancient psionic artifact, and was like, I think I'll go near the ancient psionic artifact and just see what happens. That's fine. No big deal. Yeah, so to encapsulate the previous adventures, many of the crew had only newly joined the USS Pioneer, which is a Nova-class science vessel. A very, very high-performing science vessel, but serves more of as a kind of a short-range scout for planetary survey missions in the Shackleton Expanse, which is a region to the far, far galactic east of the Beta Quadrant. It is at the back doorstep of Federation space, Klingon space, and Romulan space. It is a area of space that has been unexplored largely because the sailing is choppy. There are significant gravimetric and chronometric disturbances, strange eruptions of exotic particles, a variety of different navigation hazards, and really only recently has it become feasible to explore and exploit the Shackleton Expanse. And the Pioneer was tasked with two things. One, following up on probes and sensor readings to conduct planetary survey for either resource acquisition or potential settlement sites, or doing first or second contact with alien civilizations that may have arisen in the Expanse, but also training up a crop of promising, some young, some more experienced, but really looking to build the bench strength for Starfleet leadership, given that this is only shortly after the Dominion War and many, many officers were lost. The third and secret mission of the Pioneer was to investigate a series of archaeological finds in the near side of the Shackleton Expanse that seemed to resemble Bajoran artifacts. A few little bits and pieces of, writing that might be similar to Bajoran. There were some indications that there might be some stuff. So they went in and explored and found an orb, but it was dead. And there was an experience that wasn't like an orb experience. It was very negative and violent and vengeful. And they explored and investigated and fell in holes and stuff like that. But eventually did make contact with the Ithic, who are a very fascinating species, I suppose, who were clearly created by their masters. They watch and they wait. And it looks like they had some sort of role in maintaining what is a very, very large network of wormholes. Much more extensive than the Bajoran wormhole. And they decided to open it. So we kind of left with the first opening of the Beta Quadrant wormhole, which has termini kind of everywhere. So it is not only opening the aperture of a wormhole, it is opening up a significant portion of what appears to be some vast network or substructure that the Ithic told you led to heaven. So I think after opening the wormhole and after initial scans by Dr. Pren revealed that your chief science officer and the lieutenants that had your combined tactical con officer and your chief engineer weren't necessarily made entirely out of normal matter anymore, but didn't appear. It appeared that what the Zathik had told you, that your bodies were just reconstructed out of claytronic atoms so that they wouldn't pose a danger or be in danger due to exotic radiation in the heart of their facility. They pass all of your cognitive and physical tests. But I'm going to say you probably have recommended, or Captain O'Keir and your XO Boss Rawl have recommended that no one whose body is made out of programmed atoms should be on active duty, at least for a sec. So why don't we have a lovely scene? We'll say that Lieutenant Ravosk, your erstwhile chief engineer, is busy resting, which means he's busy running through combat simulations in the very small holosuite here on the Pioneer, testing the limits of his new body. And has, while he is otherwise engaged, he has handed over his duty to one of his near subordinates. So for this scene, why don't you introduce yourself again, Rith?
So for this scene, I will be playing Lieutenant Rel, Fala Rel, a Bajoran engineer. And we will figure out in a little while why this character is relevant to my original character.
Is it Lieutenant Rel or is it Lieutenant Fala? So like the full name.
Since it's a Bajoran, it's Rel Fala, and they go by their first name. So, right. The first listen.
They reverse it. So okay, good. Correct. So Lieutenant Rel has. These folks haven't been on the Pioneer that long, but I will say that there's been a significant amount of kind of rumor and whisper, because the Pioneer went to a planet and only they were allowed to go down. And then there was a big, everyone out when they came back. And there clearly has been something going on with these people. So there's been some significant speculation. And your boss, Lieutenant Ravosk, was not helpful. Really never opened his mouth about what they were up to. And has frankly been largely absent from main engineering because he's been involved in special research activities. I think that with the now very obvious encounter with the Ithik and Zathik and the opening of the Beta Quadrant wormhole, it's pretty clear that these folks were involved. And you do have an opportunity now that, everything's super classified, but now that many members of the Pioneer staff have had their security clearances expanded so they can actually learn more and talk about the phenomena that's occurring right outside the porthole. You have an opportunity to interact, perhaps, and speak a bit more freely. Dr. Pren, Dr. Ellis, and Dr. Adair, the doctors, when you are having a break from briefings and from meeting with your junior staff to fill them in on the necessary information so they can conduct their duties, during meal breaks, let's say, where do you go? Are you in the officer's mess? Or do you maintain tradition and hang out in the crew mess? And since we are now beginning, I will wipe out all that momentum because you don't have any. Ha-ha.
I think a deer would be eating alone in this particular circumstance.
So you think
they were trying to get away from all the noise?
Okay.
Dr. Pren also strikes me as a loner, but more in a I'm working through lunch way.
All right.
Oh, let's go to the officers' lounge and we can both like sit with a data pad in front of us and eat, but like not interact. It sounds like a great lunch, actually.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're going to eat in companionable silence.
Yes.
Yes. That's lovely. Well, I suspect. Oh, sorry. And I've lost it. I'm going to call them Fala. What is the last name?
Rel.
Lieutenant Rel. Lieutenant Junior Grade Rel. You are, in fact, an officer. You can certainly ask the computer where Dr. Pren and Dr. Ellis are. They are in the officer's mess. Dr. Adair is almost certainly in their quarters and has the do not disturb on. But now seems like there aren't any immediate missions beginning. It's just a matter of data collection and analysis. So it's a bit of downtime. So this strikes you as the perfect opportunity to go and introduce yourself officially and maybe gather a little bit of info on what's really been happening.
Go rub some elbows, because there are lots of rumors flying.
Yes.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, make my way to the officer's mess.
Yes. Now, Dr. Pren and Dr. Ellis, you see one of the relatively few Bajoran officers on board come into the officer's mess and look directly at you, probably smile, I assume, and make his way over. What happens?
So, knowledge-wise, how much have we been telling other people about everything? Like, obviously, there's a wormhole now.
Yes.
But have we been talking much about the Bajoran similarities in the ruins and stuff? Or
No.
is that it's still under clearance because of the secret man?
The fact that there is a dead orb in a science lab on the Pioneer is not well known.
No.
But it's very difficult to have any conversation about the wormhole without questions about Bajor coming up. So
yeah,
you are not permitted to reveal the existence of the dead prophet, but or all the dead prophets. But other than that, I suspect that Captain O'Keefe has simply asked you to exercise cultural sensitivity when discussing matters of Bajoran religion and try to keep that separate from your scientific and medical duties.
All right.
In other words, we don't know anything.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you can lie if you'd like. So, what happens?
Lieutenant Rel will take a seat respecting a little distance, leave like a good chair open because clearly there's a working lunch happening. But she can't resist asking just a probing question, be like, so there's now a new wormhole. Like, what the heck happened? To no one in particular, but there's only two other people in the room, so.
Yes, exactly. Ellis is gonna, taking a deep breath and looks across at Pren.
Pren is kind of just like, you're the superior officer here. What do I do?
And says, well, a lot of hands-on exploration, I guess.
Sounds enlightening. And I mean, she's just like aglow with the thought of getting hands-on with a wormhole.
Well, I'll probably be pull up some data on like the wormhole itself, all of its fancy physical attributes and so on.
Oh, I've read everything the sensors can give us.
Yes, I've been pouring it over as well. And I think you know that Ellis is technically not on duty either, but obviously he has just been looking at all this anyway because he's a giant nerd like everyone else in Star Trek. So you'll say, I bet we're going to get more hands-on with it. Did you see where it connects and all of the different parts? And I'm just going to go more into how the wormhole looks a lot.
Yeah.
And not anything helpful on how it happened.
So a nice
Misdirection.
little bit of deflection there. Excellent. Yeah. Dr. Adair would be proud. Now, the thing that I think probably strikes Lieutenant Rel the most is that there have been, and one of the sort of alerts, one of the overarching missions of every ship or almost every ship in the Expanse is New Frontier risk assessment, and as part of that, certainly all officers of Starfleet ships and generally any crew that needs to know would have been made aware that they were to be on the lookout for any Borg activity. So your brief would have included non-classified information about Borg activity, including some analysis from Voyager's time in the Delta Quadrant. The almost fractal, almost organic branching of the wormhole network is visually, at least, very similar to data that Voyager was able to bring back regarding the Borg transwarp conduit network. It strikes Rel that they have the same kind of like tree root or dendrites of a brain kind of branching.
So even though Lieutenant Commander Ellis went full into the specifications of the wormhole, Lieutenant Rel is very familiar with also the Bajoran wormhole and is at every turn pointing out every similarity and every difference, and how, you know, it's a point-to-point versus this one seems to be much more network-based, and how, oh my gosh, that seems a lot like maybe a transwarp conduit, and can't help but get ahead of herself with what it could be, and the possibilities just seem to be expensive.
And Ellis is going to keep saying, oh, really? That's interesting. I didn't notice that, even though he definitely did notice that.
Wow.
And I've mentioned this to Lieutenant Commander Rovask, but he just doesn't seem to have the time of day for me. So I'm happy to finally talk to somebody who will even broach this conversation.
So, Lieutenant Rel, I would like you to give me an insight science check. So you're going to add your insight and your science. It is going to be difficulty 0.
Okay. For insight is 8, science is 3. So we roll a 12. So that's a narrow miss.
No, it's a roll under.
Oh, it's a.
Oh, 8 and 3 is 11.
3, yes.
Yes. Yes, you're right. Narrow miss on your first one, but it's always 2d20 unless you buy more.
Always 2d20. Thank you for that reminder. The second one is a 7, so that is a single success.
A single success is all you need, and since the difficulty was 0, that actually earns you a momentum because
Huzzah.
There you go. Because it's not that hard. So as you kind of listen through Dr. Ellis's explanation and deflection, and you're having more time to kind of talk this out, and as you're kind of trying to explain it as as Dr. Ellis, who is a planetary ecologist who understands like biology and the specific, like you keep saying, it's like, no, it looks like the pattern of this and the pattern of this. And it's like, oh, I never thought of that. You're a planetary ecologist. You should have thought of this. Kind of as your mind is occupied with that, in your head, you're comparing and contrasting. It's like, oh, well, the Bajoran wormhole is just a, straight shot. It occurs to you, you kind of look on the fringes of the map. And it's not super high resolution, but you can easily extrapolate the sort of trunk and branch and root pattern. It's almost like the Bajoran wormhole should be part of the network, but is somehow isolated. There's almost like if it were organic, there would be some sort of like necrosis around it. Like just the density of the branching of the network decreases as it gets closer to both of the termini of the Alpha Quadrant to Gamma Quadrant wormhole in a way that doesn't appear to match any of the sort of random variation that is. And the initial, your readings are far from high resolution or complete. So it's more of an impression than it is an actual scientific analysis. But it does give you, given your cultural and personal interest in the Bajoran wormhole, a sense that there may be some, or may have been some interrelation in the past, but that something happened.
So she's got a hunch that something happened that caused the Alpha to Gamma Quadrant wormhole to be isolated. And being very familiar, because she is a Bajoran and very familiar with the prophets and her people's religion, that she is happy to share that theory with both Dr. Pren and Lieutenant Commander Ellis, and is just trying to contain herself at the idea of figuring out why.
Dr. Pren has been intentionally trying to look like she's very engrossed in her medical stuff. And she's going to say right now, oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I have to ask you about this like fungus that I found on the planet's surface.
Oh, a fungus. So interesting. Please continue, Doctor.
All right. Dr. Pren, would you give me a presence command roll? And I think I would like, let's call that an insight command from you, Rel. Technically, it's one difficulty, but it's imposed. But it's opposed, so we'll see who gets the higher.
So it's 2d20.
Always 2d20? You're rolling against your combined attribute and discipline.
Concern.
If you have a focus in deception, or subterfuge or something else similar, that would apply.
No, but I do have xenobotany, which is what this is.
Yeah. Doesn't help. Because you're not actually trying to gain information from an engineer about a fungus.
Well, a planetary ecologist.
Oh, you're trying to distract the conversation by asking Doctor. It still doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Trying to cut Rel out of the conversation.
Because you could have made something up and Rel probably wouldn't have known. But anyway,
yeah.
So what did you get, Dr. Pren?
I have a 7 and a 15, and my roll that I was trying to beat is an 11.
So that's one success.
One success.
Lieutenant Rel is trying to get a 9, and she got a 9 and an 11, so one success.
Ooh, interesting. Wow.
Concern.
No momentum. Would either of you like to spend one of our lovely boons to kick that over? The one who claims it first gets to do it.
Me.
Okay. So go ahead and spend a minor boon to break the tie. So
I will spend it.
yeah, so I mean, who knows? Lieutenant Rell is no fool. She probably realizes that Dr. Pren is trying to change the subject or something, but at the same time, it could just be that she's being rude, or is otherwise distracted, and so it's not like anything that you feel like you could call her out on. So while you're somewhat suspicious, I think you are smart enough to realize that, okay, this is not a line of inquiry that I can press much further. I've crossed some sort of line. And probably under your breath, I thought Dr. Pren was the nice one. Like, apparently all the rumors aren't true.
Expected this from Rovosk, but Rel,
Yeah.
wow, or Pren, that's okay.
Like, she's just really interested in the data, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We're all really interested in the data here.
It's true. I would also now like everyone, including Dr. Adair, to give me a fitness security roll. Difficulty 2.
And remind me, guys, higher or lower than our at?
At and lower is success. Is a hit. As a success.
Okay, I'm gonna roll this so I actually had a Dr. or a Lieutenant Rel character, and it'd be much better to use those stats for this one versus the actual character who, I mean, you hit his wheelhouse. So
yeah.
I think it'd be much more narrative wise to use that one.
Yes, for sure. And Lieutenant Commander Sorbach is not here currently.
Right.
It was fitness and what?
Fitness security.
2 successes.
Ooh, wow.
The dice were kind.
1 success. All right.
0 successes.
Oh, okay. So you all failed because it was difficulty 2. I think I am going to. Yeah. Unless technically you have to do it beforehand, but Dr. Ellis, if you'd like to award me a couple threats, I can let you re-roll one of those die.
No,
you have a chance
I
to
don't think that's
succeed.
going to be good odds here.
Yeah, because you guys aren't built for this stuff. This represents the fact that you are taken completely by surprise as the ship bucks in proper Star Trek fashion. EPS conduits begin blowing out all over the ship. Consoles explode. People go flying. There's a Wilhelm scream. The lights flicker. And if I can remember which one to click, immediately we transition to red alert. Alarm klaxons going off all over. There is a hasty communication. Officers on duty to the bridge. Senior staff on the double.
Okay.
You are currently the senior engineering officer on duty, Lieutenant Rell.
All the rest of us are also senior officers. Let's go.
Yes, that means you're all heading up there.
Yeah.
And we will see how jostled around you are. Ooh. Wow. So, Dr. Pren, I would like you to take 4 stress.
Ow.
Dr. Ellis, 1, 2, 3. 3 stress. Dr. Adair, 1, 2, 3 stress. And Lieutenant Rell. Ooh, 1, 2, 3. 4 stress.
Oh, remind me what stress does.
Stress is, it's just like work in a task. It's the exact, it is your vitality. It is your ability to continue to soldier on and act effectively. Just like the other subsystems that use this same mechanic, if you take more than 5 or 5 or more in a single hit, that is an injury. Once your stress track is down, is depleted, any additional damage you take also causes an injury. After a certain number of injuries, bad things happen and you die. So no one took an injury. So what the dice are saying is that many of you were thrown into the floor. You probably have superficial cuts and bruises. You're banged up a little bit, maybe a few singes, but the initial impact was not sufficient to impair you in any particular way. You are still fighting fit if banged up. So, transition the scene, although I'm not going to take away that momentum because it's all kind of part of the same situation. The doors open. The bridge is, the damage control is underway, but you can see consoles flickering. You can see that helm control. You hear as you come in, helm is barely responding, sir. And Dr. Okir, Captain Okir, who's normally very kind of relaxed and jovial and, kind of a consensus builder, a casual kind of guy, has game face on. I need shields and I need engines now. Shields coming up, sir. Turns and looks to Dr. Ellis. Ellis, what hit us?
I just start looking to see what hit us, I guess.
Yeah.
Scanning?
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Scan.
That's what I
Yep.
do. That's right. I scan things.
Yes. This is going to be difficulty 3 because your scanners have taken significant damage. Your sensor
All
array,
right.
I should say, along with multiple other subsystems because you were sitting here with your shields down.
Yeah. If everyone doesn't mind, I will spend our momentum
Use it. Go.
You probably
Use it.
should.
and then I will roll. What is a sensor scan?
Reason science or control science. I think in this case, I'm going to say it's control science because it's more that you're having to fight with the systems that it is you're trying to figure out what the readings mean.
Okay. So that is a 16 as my target.
Yes.
And since I'm using science, I can...
Yes, your sensors and
Reroll
tricorders will
thing.
apply.
Oh, but I rolled pretty good here. What's a crit success?
Because you have a focus in sensors and tricorders, right?
Yeah.
Which means that crit is if it equals or is below your science discipline.
Cool. I got 3 crits.
3 crits.
I know. 5, 3, 5.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's 6 successes, which is 3 more than you needed. Never.
Look, I got our momentum back.
Never
Everybody.
bank on the science officer not blowing it out of the park. So yes, you now have 3 momentum. Cost 1, got 3 back. Excellent. It takes a moment. The long range sensors are badly damaged. It's going to take significant physical repair. But you are able to switch to the lateral sensor array, boost the gain. You even pull in some of the kind of the near field sensors. And the first thing that you detect is that there is a substantial plasma field surrounding the, what would it be? The port nacelle. And kind of where it joins into the engineering hull. You've got damage control coming and reporting. You've got casualties, you've got hull breaches, but the deck numbers line up. Apparently that was the point of impact. You do as the lateral sensors are being recalibrated to give you a better sense of what's around, you do a quick analysis of the plasma. It matches Romulan plasma torpedoes.
Romulans, sir. And I'll explain as briefly as I can, the impact hit, torpedoes, all that.
Yep. Certainly a single high yield plasma torpedo is your closest approximation.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Adair, it maybe took you a little bit longer to get here since you had to like pick yourself up, and all the stuff in your closet fell on you, so you had to climb out of that, but you were coming in and there is a massive sense of alarm and concern and terror as you storm through the hallways of the ship, and of course the bridge as a hub of activity. Captain O'Keir is in combat mode. He's very focused. You can sense very, very high levels of stress for him, but he does not seem at all impaired. You step in just in time to hear your chief science officer say, high yield Romulan torpedo, and to see the Vosral's face changes color. Like the blue goes a little bit more purpley, which you probably know from cultural studies is the equivalent of them going, white as a sheet, or like they've seen a ghost. He understands very well that this is a problematic situation. There are, however, other ships reasonably nearby. Now, what are you going to do? Your ship has been fired on.
I'm going to treat injuries.
Yes. You can very easily communicate to your staff. And that they're setting up triage. They're doing what they've been trained to do. And yes, you can certainly you've got your kit with you, and there's one stashed in compartments here on the bridge, and so you immediately begin going around. And the good news is there aren't any significant injuries. You got some plasma burns, electrical burns. You got some lacerations and some bumps and bruises, but nothing that a little bit of spray won't fix. So you're working and making sure that everyone is operating in tip-top shape. Dr. Ellis, Chief Science Officer.
If the captain doesn't have any immediate commands, I'm probably going to keep working on the sensors because I presume the ship is still out there and we need to know.
Find me those Romulans, Doctor.
And they can cloak, right? That's a thing Romulan ships do. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep. Good thing is that Lieutenant Rel is an engineer. And we need shields and we need engines.
Engines is her specialty. That's exactly what she's going for, making sure that the warp engines are recovered.
All right. So I would like you to go ahead and make me a control engineering roll.
Okay.
This is going to be a somewhat extended task. So it's going to be difficulty 2.
Okay. She has focuses in both warp fields and warp engines.
Warp engines will apply.
Okay. So control of 12, engineering of 5.
Oh, yeah.
So that is a 16 and a 9. So 2 successes.
Excellent. That is what you needed. So you're going to take 2 d6. You're then going to add a number of d6 equal to your engineering discipline.
I should have grabbed more d6s.
And then we're going to roll them up and see how many successes you get.
Okay, engineering is 5. She is well statted for this task.
You're rolling 7 dice.
So first 3 is a 14.
Oh, nope, don't add them up.
Don't add them up?
So,
okay, so sorry.
This is the one where on a d6, a 1 is 1 hit, 2 is 2 hits, 3 and 4 are nothing, 5 and 6 are one hit and an effect. Effects almost certainly won't come into place here. So go ahead.
So the 3, a 5, and a 6. So 2 hits with 2 effects.
Cool.
A 1, a 2, and a 5. So that's 3 more hits with an effect.
Excellent.
And then one more die is a 3, no effect.
Cool. Well, the good news is that is 5 work, which is sufficient for a breakthrough, which means that on your next turn, the difficulty decreases.
Okay.
There's not really any resistance on this one because we're not making it a super long or complicated task, but none of you have had a chance to see Lieutenant Rel at work previously. She's apparently very, very competent. She immediately bypasses overloaded EPS conduits, is, in one hand is recalibrating the warp fill calculations to address the damage to your port nacelle, and feeding power and balancing it, just like, fingers playing across the LCARs masterfully. And you can report that, you're making progress to getting warp engines online. Either Dr. Ellis or Dr. Adair has a chance to do something.
I would like to scan for Romulan ships.
All right. Ordinarily, it would be difficulty 1 just because it's combat, but you are still dealing with some sensor issues, so it's going to be difficulty 2.
All right. Am I still doing control science?
Yes. In this case, I think it's reason science. You've recalibrated them. This is more like, can you figure out from the clues?
All right. I'm going to spend a momentum.
Sounds like a good idea.
Let's see. I have 2 successes and a crit success.
So a total of 4 successes.
Yep.
All right.
Have some momentum gain. You're welcome.
Yep. All right. So you aren't picking up any of the, you don't have time to set up a tachyon detection grid. Romulan cloaking technology is frankly superior to Klingon in most cases, but you are very near an extremely large and powerful spatial anomaly that even at rest gives off a variety of short-lived exotic particles. And so, being brilliant as you are, you look to detect less the ships directly and more any perturbations in that field of exotic matter and energy. You are detecting 3 ships. You believe. You have a high degree of confidence that there are 3 ships.
I will quickly present this information to the bridge.
They are arrayed in a loose formation about 200,000 kilometers away. So very close.
Okay. Yeah, this is fine.
Dr. Adair, anything you'd like to do?
Am I still on the bridge?
Yep.
I guess just maybe try and talk. Was it the XO or that turned blue or purple?
Yes.
Yeah.
Commander Boswell.
Just try to support. Maybe try to get their morale back a little bit.
Mm.
In hope of getting better command. So somehow improve morale for better command.
Yes.
Is that the thing?
Well, I think you can certainly move over and you too have had some private conversations previously. And your interest in potentially serving in Starfleet Intel, or maybe their interest in recruiting you, has been something that's been discussed. So I think maybe perhaps you have a quick conversation with him with regard to what you know and what he knows about Romulans. How do you feel, Dr. Adair, about having a word with our friends. It was if they wanted us destroyed, it would have been more than one torpedo.
I was waiting for you to suggest it. You are my superior.
So, Commander Vosral will look at the captain and say, Captain, suggest that we open hailing frequencies. Dr. Adair is quite good at this type of conversation and might be able to pick up more about their motivations than you or I could. So, an ensign will open hailing frequencies. Dr. Adair, there is no visual, but you hear the ensign on the comm say, they're receiving, sir, they're just not broadcasting. Dr. Adair.
We're not the enemies you seek. We're on the same side.
All right. Go ahead and give me a presence command. Difficulty 4.
Oh.
Feel free to use some of that momentum.
Yes.
Or all of it.
I think I might need some of it.
Complication range 16 and above.
Wow.
Okay. How many dice am I using, y'all? 4 or 5?
It's always 2 unless you spend momentum to add. So it's 1 momentum for a third one, 2 more momentum for a fourth one, and 3 more momentum for a fifth one. You can't ever have more than 5d20.
Okay, so the most I can get is 4 right now, right? Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So you want to spend all but one of your momentum?
I mean, I think I have to.
I think that sounds smart.
Yeah, especially since the rest of us cannot help you.
I got 3 successes and 1 complication.
All right. So that's a fail with a complication.
Can I use a major boon?
No. So because I said no, also because yeah, I think this is the type of complication that even a major boon can't get out of. I will say you can use a major boon to mitigate the consequences, to make it less atrociously bad, if you would like.
I think we should take it. They're Romulans. I'm going to take it.
Yeah. Go ahead and spend it.
I got it.
Dr. Ellis, you pick up a single high-yield Romulan plasma torpedo. Not 3.
They're firing. Can I yell for evasive maneuvers, or is that a captain thing?
That I mean, that's a captain thing, but anyone at this point can. All right, so we have a situation where shields are up, but barely. Working on getting the warp engine back online. Impulse engines, not so great. So what would everyone like to do in the 15 seconds before the plasma torpedo impacts the Pioneer? You each have a single thing that you can... Now, Sorbach, you can certainly continue to try to get the warp engines back online.
Lieutenant Rel will try and...
Sorry, Rel.
Yep, she will try and just get them the heck out of there, even if it means warping like half a light year away. That's what she's just trying to get a blast out of those engines once that torpedo call was made.
Yes, you're not looking to create a stable warp bubble, just a momentary. Yeah, so that will actually
Just
shorten.
a move.
Yep, that will actually shorten your. That will make it actually simpler in some ways. It's still difficulty 1, but narratively simpler, faster, we'll say.
Yeah.
Dr. Pren, Dr. Adair, Dr. Ellis.
I'm going to continue treating any casualties that I have.
Okay.
I can help the doctor. I have
Yes.
emergency medicine.
Yes. So you're just doing what you can to be useful, Dr. Ellis.
I would probably try to assist Thrall. I don't know, like keeping track of the torpedo, really, because we need to know where it is in order to try. If someone's evasive maneuvering, you got to keep up.
Yep. And you can, you're competent enough that you can, at Lieutenant Rell's instruction, shunt energy from sensors and life support into engines, or that's something that you can easily, with your command codes, at least gain access on your display to be able to assist. Cool. All right, so it's all down to Lieutenant Rell. Go ahead and give us a control engineering roll.
Use that last momentum.
Yeah, and it's only difficulty 1 at this point because you had succeeded so well at the last one.
All right, controls 12, engineering is 5.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens. There is a 9, a 7, and a 13. So that is 3 successes.
Excellent. That makes us very happy. Do we have any major banes?
Yes.
I would like to spend a major bane. I'm not going to take away from your success because that was quite good. That was an excess of 2, I think.
Yep, we have Twy to thank for the major bane.
Thank you. I appreciate it. No, it is brilliant. Because you bypass all the safeties and all that kind of stuff. But that kind of quick on your feet thinking enables you to ignore a lot of the challenge presented by the damaged nacelle. And you are able to momentarily create a warp bubble. And like it's like impact in 3, 2, 1, and then there's a significant flash, and you can feel a lurch because, the inertial dampeners aren't all there. There are many systems that are compromised. And after a moment disorientation, you, Dr. Ellis, can see that while it doesn't appear that you have moved, the brief formation of the warp bubble deflected or altered the course of the plasma torpedo, and it is now going harmlessly off to destroy some planet, unless the tiny amount of drag that is present in interstellar space is enough to slow it down before it hits some future inhabited world. But that's just the way space combat works. Your sensors are also telling you that the 3 anomalies or ships appear to be moving closer. They've decided that disabling you from a distance might not work. They might be getting up to disruptor range, so they can be a bit more precise. The other thing your sensors tell you is that while clever, Rel's not particularly well-researched or precise creation of a warp bubble very near to the event horizon of a massive wormhole network has created unforeseen consequences.
That's not good.
You are detecting a static Verteron field that is intersecting the Pioneer. Think of it as a membrane of like sixth dimensional energy intersecting in a very, very thin membrane at a slight diagonal through the hull of the Pioneer. You're not sure what would happen if you tried to navigate out of it. Potentially thrusters, warp engine completely out of it. This is a bad situation. What do you say, Chief Science Officer? Dr. Adair picks up, can just, even without a change on Dr. Ellis's face, picks up, oh no.
Yeah.
We're trapped in a Verteron particle field. We'll need to use thrusters to get out of the fire. I also then mumble. And I guess I also mentioned the Romulan are approaching.
Yes.
I assume I'm displaying the approximate ship location so everyone can see that.
And they're moving slowly, and it's scene to scene transition, so we don't have to worry about specifically real timing it. In the next, we'll say 3 minutes, it's chaos. Part of the challenge is that given the angle of penetration of this Verteron field, the people who are on the other side seem to be fine. Your communications are intermittent, but relatively clean. The challenge is escape pods are going to be a problem for significant portions of the ship. The escape pods that are up here, specifically for the bridge crew, are fine. But getting to the rest is going to be a problem. Now, people can move back and forth through the membrane. You don't know what the long-term effect is going to be on them, but you don't have time to study it. But the ability to evacuate the entire crew complement is impaired. So, the captain will order all those capable to abandon ship. Lieutenant Rowell, Captain O'Keefe says, I need you to stay on thrusters. Every few meters we can make has a chance of freeing up another escape pod.
You got it, Captain.
So, with the exception of Captain O'Keefe and Lieutenant Rowell, who has behaved heroically and with great intuition and grace under pressure, the senior crew that is present on the bridge, and as well as the junior officers, are ordered to abandon ship. Which I assume you do. Otherwise, the captain would shoot you and then have someone stuff you into an escape pod. So,
yes.
With heavy hearts, and Commander Vosral is still attempting to make communications with the Romulans. He is sharing. We've encountered some sort of unknown energy field. Recommend that you stay at a distance. We are of no harm for you. We're a science ship. You're in breach of XYZ treaty, etc. As you exit the kind of triangular pods, or you enter the kind of triangular pods, you key the release sequence in. We have an outside scene. The ship doesn't look that badly damaged, especially not from this angle. The lights are flickering, and there's this fine, faintly glowing membrane, barely visible in space. That if you really didn't know what you were looking for, you wouldn't see it. But it's almost as if, you know how if you put a straw in a glass of water, there's that slight bend in the light. It's almost like there's a little bit of refraction. The hull just doesn't quite look right. But absent those things, it looks like to be in fine shape. So as you watch out the porthole, as your pods disengage and then the thrusters fire to get you out to safe range, you see the Pioneer just kind of sitting there, floating in space. You see 3 Romulan Cruisers. These are not the Dodera decks. These are not massive. These are lighter cruisers, smaller, probably faster, probably also more stealthy, They are of a design that is likely unfamiliar to you, specifically, meaning they're probably newer. Well, you probably have seen something similar in reports of engagements of Romulan forces in the Dominion War, but these are probably a second generation of some of their newer ships. They're familiar. They're clearly Romulan. The good news is that they don't fire. As you jut away. The bad news is that one of them engages a tractor beam, which appears to react unpredictably with a static verteron field. There is normally when the wormhole opens, there's a burst of light in space, a particle fountain, and then that kind of beautiful spiraling vortex. This is almost like someone punched a beam of particles through subspace into regular space. It spirals around, kind of whips around in a tight circle, and then there's a ugly, irregular rip of light. Everyone who's looking out is momentarily blinded. I mean, everyone has certainly Dr. Ellis has their tricorder open. You're picking up like a lot of data about what's happening. And then the event is over. Radiation and particle density returns to normal for this part of space. The crisis appears to be at an end. There is no Pioneer. And there are no Romulan ships. So,
And after a few minutes of furiously scanning, I also realized there's no dead prophet that was in the Pioneer.
Yeah.
This
Pioneer gone.
It gone.
So, cut to a large but Spartan office. The only concession to comfort or opulence is a very, very large window. Looking out the window, you can see a variety of ships. You can see a Galaxy class, and by the kind of circular glow of light emitting on the ventral and dorsal surface of the saucer section, it is the new refit, designed specifically for diplomatic missions. It has its own promenade. There's a promenade deck that circles in the heart of the saucer section. You see the Thunderchild, so an Akira class, out in space that has been doing kind of perimeter security. You see a number of Klingon ships, Vorcha class, no little tiny birds of prey, none of the massive war cruisers or any of that, but a fair showing of Klingon ships. And you see the Aurora, the sister ship of the Pioneer, another Nebula class. And you see a ship of unfamiliar design. It is, there's the kind of almost triangular swept back saucer section, blends very smoothly into an almost cylindrical engineering section. The nacelles are relatively small, and they are on kind of swooped back. It is, it looks reminiscent of a sea creature. It's very streamlined and elegant in design, but also looks very, very sturdy. For those of you who have any love of ships, you can tell that this was designed to be beautiful, but also to be less vulnerable. Like a lot of its weak points appear to have been designed to either present a very narrow aspect from certain angles in combat, or to just be more sturdy. But it also has some unusual design characteristics. It looks like it is designed to be hydrodynamic, like a submarine, which doesn't make sense because it's a spaceship. And it's hard to believe that a ship of that size was designed to look so aerodynamic just for appearances, just for aesthetic. So even though no one who is currently present is an engineer, there's something about it that catches the eye. It's also quite large. It's the approximate size of a Sovereign class. It's a bit narrower, and actually a bit longer, stem to stern. But it is a massive, massive ship. And that is what you see as you are all waiting in this meeting room. It is Dr. Adair, Dr. Pren, and Dr. Ellis, who are joined by a security officer. Oh, no, sorry, tactical, correct? Security, excellent. Kind of the same thing. There is a Lieutenant Commander, Vulcan.
How much time has passed again?
A few weeks.
Okay.
There was a rescue operation. There have been some immediate debriefs. You were picked up by... I will tell you the name of the ship in a moment. By another ship that is somewhat unfamiliar to you. It, from a distance, looked very much like an old Ambassador class.
Okay.
But it's clearly a new design. It shares the same kind of Enterprise C body plan, kind of pre-galaxy, but is obviously very, very up to date. In fact, it is the Narendra class, which is being operated. They are being built at the Bajor shipyards. It's an update of the old Ambassador design, which is a very, very successful design. But it is that design with all the mod cons. And that is helping to revitalize the Bajoran economy.
It's a classic.
It's like a classic or a throwback to a classic, but it has all the kind of modern lines.
Yeah. It's, your retro toaster.
Yes. It's not the Honshu. I'll tell you later. Anyway, but yes, that crew picked you up and brought you back, and you've had a variety of different briefings with senior staff and Starfleet intelligence, etc. I can take us off red alert, and I can also get rid of one of our momentum because we are for sure changing scenes. But this is the first time that you are all meeting Admiral April Hebert. 3 of you, Dr. Adair, Dr. Pren, and Dr. Ellis, did meet her briefly when you came to Narendra Station to accept your posting on the Pioneer. But this is the first time that you have spoken to her since the Pioneer was lost.
Mm-hmm.
And you anticipate she has read your reports, but you know that she likes a personal touch. Lieutenant Commander Sorbach, you are aware of the events that happened. You might not be aware of all the details, like all the intricate, politically problematic details about the nature of the scientific discovery, but you know everything that you need to know, and you certainly are very aware of the reports of the bravery and competence that Lieutenant Rel displayed. Having served with her before, you are not surprised. Your presence was requested by the Admiral. You have been serving, I will say, as the... after having transferred from the Shakar, which is a Miranda class, cruiser. You had been slated to pick up the chief security officer role aboard the Honshu, but those orders were belayed. And I have to suspect, are anticipating that you'll receive further directives from April Hebert, who whisks herself into the room. She's small, she's slight, she's probably late 40s, early 50s, relatively young for an admiral, especially one in such a strategically important post. But remember, it wasn't that long ago that Narendra Station was kind of a place that you just went because there wasn't much happening. It is now a much more strategically important post than it was just a few short months ago. And that fact doesn't look lost on her, especially from Dr. Adir's perspective. She seems to be carrying the weight of the world. But when she looks at you, you can see a level of empathy across her face. I'm sure everyone stands as would be appropriate. Please sit down. This isn't official. I read all your reports. I just wanted to hear it from you. This is Lieutenant Commander Sorbach. He's been read in. Anything that you can say to me, you can say to him. Oh, Lieutenant Commander, you should probably introduce yourself to them. I haven't shared your file with them.
He nods towards the Admiral and then addresses the other three. I am Lieutenant Commander Sorbach. I am a capable security officer, also engineer. I have been reassigned. As to what exactly, I am not sure yet, but I suspect, meeting you three, it has something to do with the Pioneer. And I have some personal matters to attend with this, so I am eager to hear what it comes out.
Admiral Hebert will kind of, in an almost Vulcan way, like quirk an eyebrow when you say you have personal matters to deal with, but won't press it further. So tell me a story.
So Lieutenant Commander Sorbach, originally, so we're gonna step back from the current scene. Now we're going back narratively into the timey-wimey history and cutscenes of everything is kind of fuzzy in the edges and that, and you see a young stoic Vulcan at the academy, and he meets a beautiful young Bajoran engineer, and they hit it off. They both are in engineering classes, engineering school, and do well, and they both manage to land their first assignment together. This is just prior to the outbreak of the Dominion War, which will shape pretty much, well, everyone here's lives. So it's a fitting thing where the two of them strike a strong bond and really much request. Oh, exactly. Yes, you can furrow those eyebrows. Yes, that is very much in the cards. They request, transfers together and chip assignments together. And it is one of the few rare Vulcan Bajoran weddings that happen, both with ceremonies on Bajor and Vulcan. And yes, this was Lieutenant Rel and Lieutenant Commander Sorbach. So he has very much a personal matter at stake in this. And through the course of the Dominion War, his engineering skills were put a little bit aside to deal more with let's say the heavy lifting of the war effort. And so that kind of got him into security and weapon systems and things like that helped keep him alive.
Yes.
And I feel like the flashback shows all of your different post-its together, and then it kind of merges one where she's at like the helm of the engineer with the end of us telling the story of what just happened in the Pioneer, of her doing all the things, the stuff like that, and we finish explaining like you know, the last moments on the ship, what we assume happened. I assume we know who made off the ship and who didn't at this point.
Oh yes.
Yes.
And there is a uncharacteristic lone Vulcan tear that comes down the cheek.
Yes. So Sorbach was momentarily caught up in memories. And Sorbach is very familiar. And again, this is not that Admiral Hebert is like needs the details, but like really wants to hear it from you. Partly in case there's anything that's missing, but also just to get a better sense of what happened. She will lean back. Yes, Dr. Adair, you pick up emotion from Sorbach. It is
Waves upon waves.
but I mean,
But then abruptly stopped.
and Vulcans are extraordinarily emotional creatures. They're violently, destructively emotional. It's just that they have trained themselves. Their culture has been founded on the ability to control, if not purge. So the one thing that you know for sure is that Sorbach has not undergone the final purging of emotion. But
Quite clear.
But it's not unheard of for Vulcans to experience emotion, but this is strong. Admiral will cross her arms and, well, according to the scientists, she isn't gone. She wasn't destroyed. She's out there somewhere. Now, whether she's out there in one piece or not, whether she's out there in one piece with 3 Romulan warbirds, these are things we don't know. But given the people that are on her, the data that's on her, and some of the material that's on her, we're going to see if we can't get her back.
I left some good books on there. Hey, I got a laugh out of the Vulcan. That's what I was looking for.
Well, Dr. Adair, you can add that to the list. I just suggest that you put it down at like number 17 of the things that we need to get back. So, we can extrapolate. We can guess. So I'm going to assign you to the newest member of the Narendra fleet. She gestures out the window. That's the USS Capitoline. If you're not familiar with her body plan, that's because she's a Vesta class. There are, well, 2 others in existence. She's a little different. You might, actually, no, you might have heard about the Aventine, because that is, Esri Dax was recently promoted to be the captain of the Aventine. That was the first ship. The second ship, the Palatine, very little is known about. What you know is that there were some significant changes, some systems that are different between the two, although the hull is largely the same. You know that there are a variety of additional or strange, probably secure and classified systems, but it was clear that production halted on the Vesta line. There was some redesign process, and the Palatine was produced, and the Capitoline is the 3rd ship of the Vesta line. Yeah, she recently joined us from Utopia Planitia. This is technically her extended shakedown run. Yeah. So, I am going to assign all 4 of you as mission advisors. You are experts in the events and the phenomena involved. All 4 of you are highly motivated to get my people and my ship back. It is going to be up to Captain McKinley how they want to integrate you. I know that you'll be treated as senior officers. I'm not sure what your shift rotation is going to be. But I am tasking each and every one of you personally. Get my people, get my ship, get my data, and get my artifacts back. And I kind of don't care how far you have to go to get it.
Aye, sir.
Good news is the captain line can go pretty far. The Advanced Starship Design Bureau has not been sitting on all the data and material recovered from Voyager and doing nothing with it. She's got some tricks up her sleeve that should be useful. All right. Do you need anything from me? I mean, other than time off, which I can't give you. No?
I can't think of anything.
If you have friends and loved ones, you might want to send them a note. You may be out of communications for a bit. Other than that, 0600 in the morning. Report to the bridge. Dismissed. So, you have a little bit more than half a day. We'll say 36 hours. So, no, 36, what I'm saying. We'll say 18 hours. You are on Narendo Station. The security presence is significantly higher than the last time you were here. There are more ships in orbit. You see a number of Saber and Gladius class. These are smaller, faster ships that appear to be on patrol because there's been a Romulan incursion. I mean, that was several light years away, but that's still far, far into the expanse. And they fired on a Federation ship. So, yes, the situation is on high alert. What do you do?
Well, I'll probably take the Admiral's advice and write home. Send a quick message off.
Who is Dr. Ellis leaving behind?
He's probably writing to his mother, as his father died when he was young. She's actually a scientist who works in and around Star Trek interests, I believe. So was assigned to research on Bajor. I kind of assume she's still there, actually. So probably just sending a message there. She knows that he's under Starfleet for scientific research reasons to try to, do as much good with all the science stuff as possible in such an organization that's slowly turning more militaristic over time.
Right.
He has noticed.
And does she share your pacifistic leanings?
I think so.
I mean,
So,
you probably got it from somewhere.
yeah, and it was probably her. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Dr. Pren.
Dr. Pren's going to write to her little sister, Beza Taz. Her little sister was successful in getting a symbiont. She doesn't talk to her parents anymore because her parents were partial to her little sister. But she loves her little sister, even if her sister is won the family lottery.
And how is that? And how has it been getting to know your sister again after the joining?
Complicated. Very complicated. Because not only was my sister more exceptional than me, but all the people that the Trill was joined to before were more exceptional too.
And she went from being a bratty kid sister to being a bratty kid sister who sometimes shows a degree of wisdom and experience that far outstrips your own.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah. I can imagine.
I still love my sister.
Yes. I would feel bad for you, but you did it to yourself. So there we go.
Mm.
So yes, it's a complicated. Is she a member of Starfleet?
She's not.
Okay.
She's a politician on Trill.
Okay. So yeah, it's a with subspace relays you can get a near real time communicate, even though it's like basically the other side of the quadrant. There's a little bit of delay, but it's not like you have to send a letter.
Yeah.
So you have a lovely conversation with your sister, who is very glad that you're alive. But accepts the fact that you are potentially going back into danger in a very mature way. You know, it's the path that you've chosen, and she will honor that. Also, since you don't have a symbiont with you, it's not that big a deal if you die. I mean, she didn't say that, nor does she actually believe it, right? But there's a little bit of that. It's like, it'd be a little bit different. And say, oh, you're going to find Captain O'Keir? That's great. Please do that. Bring back that O'Keir symbiont.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
The poor captain.
Oh, and also maybe be safe too.
The letter was
This is why I didn't call my parents.
So yes, a touching but maybe not entirely satisfying conversation with your little sister. Love it. What is Lieutenant Commander Sorbach doing?
Sorbach is sending more of just an updated communique to his parents. They live in a frontier Federation colony. He hasn't, I mean, when he can, he visits, but due to kind of an ongoing war and conflict and them being a fringe system, it's not that this isn't new.
And a substantial travel just to spend time in physical proximity with your parents would be illogical.
Right.
An unnecessary expenditure of resources when you can convey information back and forth. Do they approve?
That was a known calculation upon sponsoring him to the academy.
Yes. Do they approve of your attachment to a Bajoran?
He doesn't believe they truly approve, but they do not protest it.
Yes. Perhaps they realize that protest would not change the current state of things. So expressing their opinions wouldn't produce the desired results, so why express them? Yes. Did you attend did you attend the Vulcan Science Academy? Like, how deeply ingrained were you in that kind of academic path? Or did you take the more standard Starfleet route of...
It was a more standard Starfleet. Okay. They were, I would say, Sorbach's family was more in a Federation colony than a Vulcan colony. So the Academy path was much more the apparent one than the Vulcan Science Academy and going that route.
All right. So yeah, the Vulcan Expeditionary Force was never really part of your future.
No.
Cool. All right. If Dr. Adair is with us, what is Dr. Adair doing?
Kelly is AFK right now.
Okay. Well, most of Dr. Adair's family, friends, and loved ones are dead. So we'll see. We'll get a flashback of whatever weirdness Dr. Adair was up to. Do we need to call any scenes involving the players between your kind of following up on the Admiral's recommendation to say some goodbyes and actually showing up in the transporter room on the Capitol line?
I mean, I want to eat in companionable silence with Ellis all the time.
Yeah, I think that's kind of our thing now.
Yeah.
Like, it's too awkward to discuss, like, am I really still a human if all my stuff was replaced? Did I get superpowers because of this? Let's not address it, and let's just read some nice notes and write reports instead.
Well,
this is healthy.
And this is the way
healthy.
the Federation works. There's some sort of earth-shattering discovery, an event that changes everything, and then it's just never mentioned again.
Yeah.
Until maybe like 3 seasons from now when it's like, it's important. And then it comes back up.
I can't wait until the arc where I do have superpowers because they forgot that this happened, and then
something weird happens.
Well,
exactly.
There's a multidimensional incident, and you find yourself losing your memory as a teenage robot in a semi-futuristic world with lots of superheroes. I mean, you're some sort of weird. What? Yeah, your future is to become Tilly.
Obviously.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. I will say Sorbach. I mean, this is a little reminiscent. It occurs to you that the last people to see Lieutenant Rahl are currently sitting a couple of tables away.
Oh no.
Logical.
Sitting in companionable silence, looking at pads.
This always happens to us.
We're just trying to be really quiet, and then an awkward conversation comes along and gets us.
He will approach with his very stark Vulcan breakfast and request to be able to sit in silence.
Please.
That sounds good. Have a seat.
Gesture to a chair.
In the meantime, you do have access to the personnel files. So you now know more about Sorbach. And it would have been completely reasonable for you to have looked up the Vulcan you just met and have seen on his very public personnel file that he is or was, we'll see, married to Lieutenant Junior Grade Ralph.
So now we have the question of whether to be polite to mention that or not in our awkward silence. Let's see. When he sits down, it's definitely like, look at Pren, look at him, look at Pren.
Pren is just looking, doing the same looking exercise. Our eyeballs are getting some aerobics.
And Sorbach is content, sitting and eating.
Yes.
Well, Vulcans don't talk when they're eating, so.
Sorbach is probably very aware that the doctors are feeling very awkward. You're quite familiar with emotional humanoids, and you can see the, like.
What do we do?
Yeah.
We should definitely say something. I think eventually, probably when I'm close to being done eating, because that seems like a good escape if things go badly. I'll say, really sorry about Lieutenant Rel. We're going to find him. All of them, including her.
I hope so.
Oh, well, I better get going. Got to get some rest. See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Dr. Penn looks at Ellis like, don't leave me.
Els looks at her like, you should eat faster, pointing at his empty tray.
Yes. Yes. Yes, and Roger in chat is correct that the Vulcans, little known fact, Vulcans developed nerve pinch specifically to end awkward silences. So that is an option if you would like. Just like, nope, and then walk away. So, yes. Dr. Adair, you are also present and can pick up on the awkwardness. I think... Sorbach, you have your emotions under control at the moment, yes?
Yes, they are usually under control.
Okay. So you aren't picking up any kind of unusual, maybe intellectual curiosity at the unusual behavior of the emotional humanoids at the table.
Or slight enjoyment at the situation.
Yes. Perhaps a little bit of perverse enjoyment, making things weird. And Dr. Adair realizes that making things weird is your job. Also, you have read Lieutenant Commander Sorbach's profile and know that he is married to Lieutenant Junior Grade Rel. So you may or may not broach that subject because it is now common knowledge.
I think Adair would try to use this moment to like build a closer bond rather than delve deeper, and just really both enjoy the awkwardness that just occurred. It's like a silent enjoyment and just bonding over what had just occurred, and try to better the connection for hopefully doing what you just said later.
Okay.
Success.
So
dice are good.
So yes, that makes perfect sense. Sorbach is enjoying kind of the discomfiture, not in a cruel way. And then you catch Lieutenant Commander or Dr. Adair's eyes and realize that Dr. Adair is kind of doing the same thing. There's a moment of silent communication, and you're both at least somewhat telepathic. So maybe it's easier for you to read each other's state, but you both realize that there's a lot going on under the surface, and you're both enjoying the fact that you can both sit in peace with that, and the others now appear to have to flee. and Dr. Pren is probably mostly Dr. Adair, mostly angry at Dr. Ellis for being the first one to get out. And now it's even weirder for Dr. Pren to leave. So how does Dr. Pren leave? Or does Dr. Pren just sit there and stew?
No, Dr. Pren is going to like continue eating as calmly as she can, and then remember suddenly that she's late to an appointment, and like almost overblown, like knock something over. Oh God, I'm so late. And then can you put this back in the replicator? I gotta go.
Yeah.
And just
you make up something about having to go to main medical.
Uh-huh.
And then because you feel guilty about lying, you actually go to main medical, where the chief medical officer of Narendra Station is there, who is a Klingon who takes no stuff from nobody, and then promptly, "Who are you? What are you doing in my med bay?"
I just remembered I have somewhere else to be. Sorry. I should turn around and go back to my quarters.
Yes. Strange.
Curious. Dr. Pren didn't have anything else in her schedule this morning. Oh well.
Well,
Dr. Pren's very awkward. She has.
Well, Sorbach is a thorough security officer, so he knew exactly when you would have shown up to the mess hall and what else you would have before the briefing this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Any response to that, Dr. Adair?
I was going to say, well, Dr. Prin has weirder days than others. This is just one of those.
Oh man.
That's fine. Just making first impressions everywhere you go.
Look, there has to be a reason why she failed at the initiation.
Does
But-
there though? Does there?
Potentially. All right. Well, if there is no other business, you individually make your ways, but join back up again, one of the many transporter pads on Render Station. Tell the transporter operator your destination. They confirm. You step onto the pad and you are transported into the capital line. The interior aesthetic is, it's obviously Starfleet. But this is probably the newest ship that any of you have been on. It is quite new. You know that it's not just that it's a newly built ship, and you know that this is, effectively it's extended shakedown cruise, but it is also one of the very newest designs. And unlike the Narendra class, it is not an update of a previous space frame. It is a entirely new space frame. It does have some visual cues from the Sovereign, but how to describe it? It's cleaner and softer in some ways. It's maybe a bit more spare. The Sovereign is a warship in everything but name. This clearly, and I probably have read up a bit, it's got a substantial crew complement of, I think, 750. So roughly 10 times what you're used to on, and it can hold many, many more. It is in some ways inspired by the Intrepid. It has extraordinary sensor suites. It is also in some ways aligned with the Sovereign and even the Defiant. It has substantial defensive systems. It's got powerful phasers and things, but it's not designed for combat, but it's quite combat capable. It also has, I think probably, Lieutenant Commander Sorbach probably understands this, being a skilled engineer in addition to being a security officer. It has a variety of novel and experimental shielding systems. And frankly, the fact that it is both extremely sturdy and well armored, and also has a lot of shield systems, this is designed for hazardous duty. So it's a science ship, but with big old guns and a lot of armor and really, really awesome shields. So it's an unusual combination. It's almost like, and I think this probably occurs most to Dr. Ellis, that constant tension between, are we going to go back to exploration and science and diplomacy, or are we going to start building the big guns? It's like they couldn't decide, so they just did both. Which probably makes things like power management problematic. None of you have any information about the propulsion systems, however. Other than it has warp engines and RCS reactors and etc. Other than just like the basics, of course it does as a spaceship. There's a lot of redacted when it comes to the propulsion technology employed on the Capital Line. But the first officer is there to greet you, as is a Klingon. The first officer introduces herself as, let me pull up the sheet, as Commander Amala Niseni. She is an Afrosian. She is the character inspiration is Gina Torres of Firefly fame and other sci-fi fame. So she looks like a badass. She's very, very beautiful, tall, statuesque, a very commanding presence. The Klingon next to her is a bit taller, also female. She is introduced as Colonel Tukara. She does have the Colonel insignia. But Dr. Adair, she's very unusual. You have been around Klingons a lot, recently, especially while you've been on Narendra Station and even before. It's almost like she's operating at 2 levels. She has the very typical kind of aggressive Klingon physical stance and scowl, and she's carrying herself and she's like super fit, and she clearly has dressed herself and is carrying herself to be as physically imposing as possible. And she even has a bit of a scowl on her face, as would be expected from a Klingon officer. But just below that is a sense of amusement, and playfulness. It's almost like back in the academy days when an upperclassman wouldn't realize that you were Betazoid and would try to trick you into doing something that was kind of embarrassing. I mean, not harmful, but just like light hazing. She has that feel about her. Like you don't sense any malice, and you certainly, like, the exterior, that gruff Klingon exterior, does not match at all the interior. And you get a sense that she's for sure putting on that dour Klingon, almost like a costume. The rest of you just see very imposing, scary Klingon colonel.
Does Adair get any sense that it might be a changeling?
No.
Okay.
But I will say Adair will actually, those of you who know Adair see the eyes go a little wide and then defocus. No. I am going to say she picks up on that, though. And while her face says, like, what are you looking at me for? Internally, she kind of thinks it's funny. Like, she's not remotely surprised that you are picking up on her internal state. And in that moment, you realize that she's also operating at 3 levels, because that surface of, let me put on this show, there's something below that is not malicious, but extraordinarily cunning. She's putting on masks for her audience and knew that one of the members of her audience was telepathic, so she put on another mask for you. And then she clamps down. And you don't pick up as much from her. You could if you tried, but just your passive telepathic sense stops registering. And then she gives you a little bit of a quick smile. Really only so that only you can see. So yeah. Well, Captain Ryan is this is Commander Desetti. Captain Ryan is anxious to meet you. We tend to, she's okay if you call her Mac, McKinley or Mac. She's somewhat, sorry, they are they're not super formal, although you worked with Captain O'Keir. They knew each other. They went to academy together. So Captain Ryan is pretty motivated to see if we can't go find him and help out. And we're all very glad to have you aboard. I've read your profiles. You're all very skilled officers in your own right, and your experience and knowledge of the events and complications at work. And she kind of she puts a little bit of a glance towards Colonel Takara. And Takara just says, yes, yes. I've read all the files, yours and ours. I'm quite aware of all the complications. Shall we take this conversation out into the hallway? You can tell the transporter operator is just like a little intimidated by this Klingon. Who then stalks ahead of you all. You have a few moments if you have any questions that you would like to ask of Commander Nasetti, who will be your executive officer. Otherwise, she will lead you straight to the nearest pod, and you will be transported to meet the captain on the bridge. Any banter? So
our banter is still on the Pioneer.
Okay, yeah. So you all just like walk in silence. Colonel Takara will kind of, as she's walking around, she will kind of turn and look back at you and kind of go, awkward, in a very human way. And again, like very intentionally kind of mimicking human. Like, and she does it even kind of in like a little bit of she puts a little bit of a Valley Girl growl on it. Awkward. And then smiles to herself. All right, well, you take the turbo lift up to the bridge. The bridge this is a science ship. Just based on the amount of surface area dedicated to sensors. It is very, very modern. It has two cons, however. So it has like parallel or like tandem constations, but in terms of their placement, but one of them is of a very unfamiliar configuration. But seated in the chair is well, she's seated, you don't know for sure. She's probably relatively short, kind of 5.5 feet. She is quite slender. She's wiry. She has they have short blonde hair. And they are, for visual inspiration, they are Tilda Swinton. And they turn and welcome you. I'm sure you say the thing, reporting for duty, permission to come aboard, all that kind of stuff. Oh, granted, yes. Well, welcome aboard. This is the Capital Line. I'm sure it's not, I can see, this is not exactly what you were expecting, or not anything that you might be familiar with. You'll have plenty of time to become familiar with her systems. But for now, let me introduce my staff. She will introduce you to, you've already met Commander Nasetti, our Chief Tactical Officer, Lieutenant Commander Sirik. This is a Bajoran man. It is Elba. We have our Chief Flight Controller, which is Lieutenant Junior Grade Suko Nakata. We have our Chief Science Officer, Commander Valan, who is a fellow Vulcan. We have our Chief Astrometrics Officer, Lieutenant Liala Silar. We have our Chief Medical Officer is actually currently dealing with an outbreak of Rigelline flu. So they'll be joining. But that is Dr. Vedikruma, who is a Rigelian Jelna. And we have Lieutenant Commander Kel Ahar, who is our operations officer, who is Betazoid. And then Lieutenant Commander Tosh, or Bim Tosh, our chief engineer, is probably crawling around in a Jeffries tube somewhere. That man is impossible. Tellarites. There are a variety of others, but... Oh, and don't mind the green uniforms. We do have a Marine contingent aboard. So it's unlikely that you'll need to interact with them But at some point, I'll take the time to, if I can break into his busy schedule, I will introduce you to Major Pomar. He is the task force chief. So, tell us about yourselves. I mean, we've read all your profiles, but Dr. Ellis, planetary ecology. She's fascinating.
Oh, it is. It's very fascinating. I've been really excited with all the latest research we had been doing with all the different, and he will just kind of go on until it looks like he should probably stop.
Excellent. Well, planetary ecology is not one of the disciplines that that is one of our significant strengths at the moment. We were not, between you and I and, well, the rest of the senior staff, we weren't really planning on going out onto a high-profile mission quite so soon. Not quite sure. I think we'll probably put you on the beta shift. I mean, you're qualified as Chief Science Officer. Valan, and Valan will simply say, that would be eminently logical, Captain. Dr. Pren, I understand that you took a somewhat circuitous road to get here. This is the second position that you find yourself in, somewhat surprisingly. How you holding up? You're gonna have to speak up there, Dr. Brennan. Can't hear you when you just mouth words.
It's been a time, Captain.
I can imagine. Well, I'm sure Dr. Ruma will be glad of your assistance. Actually, you know what? If you're all willing, for now, why don't you all just step into beta shift?
Certainly.
Jura, is that okay with you? And the Bajoran tactical officer will kind of... The way he looks at you, Sorbach, he has read your file. He has opinions about Vulcans and Bajorans marrying each other. Fine with me, boss. He says, and like maintains eye contact a little bit longer. Oh, yes. I am going to assign you as a special tactical officer. You know how to operate phasers, right?
Yes, Captain.
And you're familiar with the basics. And we have, our systems are somewhat unusual, but Sirik over there can help you out. And
happy to learn a new system.
Yeah. It's not that hard. You just power them up, aim, press the button, they fire. Hopefully we won't come to that. Well, Dr. Deere, may I say it is a tremendous personal pleasure to meet you.
Does that seem honest?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Then Adir graciously accepts the compliment.
Yes. I was prior to getting the extra pip, I served aboard the Kissimmee. This is one of the relief ships that helped out after the Bajoran occupation. Yeah, so I mean, thank you for your service. That was a difficult time. I unfortunately got to see some of the aftermath firsthand. So your abilities as a counselor and scientist are always welcome aboard beta shift counseling. But obviously all of you, you have your shift assignments, but you're probably not right away, but when we encounter any signs, any evidence as to where our friends on the Pioneer might be, reserve the right to pull you off of duty. But for now, I just wants you to get integrated into the crew, meet your fellow members of senior staff, familiarize yourself with ship systems, and just find ways to be productive and contribute. Not asking too much. I have been briefed, but if there's anything else that anyone would like to tell me or report to Chief Science Officer or Chief Medical, wherever, just speak up. You look like you have something on your mind, Dr. Pran.
I have a narrator question.
Okay.
How much, has everything been declassified? Did the captain and the XO know everything, or?
You don't know.
Cool.
Is it because you didn't ask Captain Hebert?
Oh, yeah.
Or Admiral Hebert?
We didn't do that. Yeah.
No, we didn't.
So you probably have to ask.
Okay. Dr. Prentice's going to look like she's about to say something and then think better of it.
All right. Well, when you decide you do have something you want to tell me, you can always find me in my reading room if I'm not here. And if it's something real important, you can just ask the computer where I am and you can tell me then. All right?
Aye, Captain.
Nicetti, who's not busy right now? And the XO will kind of think, I don't think Father Shakora has anything going on. Oh, okay. Can you ask him to report to the bridge? And moments later, a 7-foot tall Cation kind of slinks into the doors open, and this almost gingerly but very, very gracefully, he is wearing a black uniform but with white piping. It is not unheard of, but it is atypical for a Starfleet ship to have a chaplain. At least certainly in the past, 150 years, it's become less common. But those are the chaplain colors. And he steps in. Shakora, these are our new crew members. I thought it would be a good idea to have you give them a tour, assuming that you don't have anything else important to do. And Shakora, well, I can't do a Cation voice, but it's very kind of gravelly and purry, very ASMR. Oh no, Captain, my pleasure. Welcome. And he smiles, the big, huge canines, the eyes very, very green and round, the whiskers twitching. Some of you might have gone to the academy with Cations, but they're apex predators. But this one seems very nice. His fur is beautifully combed. His uniform is very spick and span. Well, what can I show you first? What am I allowed to show them, Captain? Well, they're going to be aboard with us for a while, so anything they want to see, basically. Except for... Understood, Captain. Come with me. What would you like to see first? We have an arboretum.
Dr. Pren looks at everyone else and says, Can we also see the main medical bay?
Oh, of course. One of the wings is quarantined due to Romulan flu. I understand it. Yes. It's quite embarrassing how it affects most humanoids' lower GI tracts.
And it's extremely contagious.
Yes. Dr. Rabai, I'm sure, has it under control, but we wouldn't want any of you to catch it. Make a really bad first impression.
Sure.
Anything else? So, sick bay first. Anything else anyone wants to see?
The armory, please.
Ooh, armory. A little excited about that, but that's fine. I understand. I hope you don't think that I'm being presumptuous. I understand that you are very knowledgeable about Bajoran religion. I am
More than many Vulcans.
I'm a bit of an eclectic myself, but I am proud to say that I am a Bajoran Rylar. It is one of the 17 religions that I have acquired some degree of certification in. Although my interests extend much further than that. So should you wish to compare notes or perhaps practice, I know that also the Vulcan philosophy is not technically what one would call a religion, but if there are any of the normal rites that you would like to participate in, I am quite skilled.
Thank you for your offer, Chaplain.
Excellent. So, sick bay and where? It's a big ship.
Let's see, we heard the armory. The arboretum sounds nice. Maybe taking a look at the sensor arrays. That's always nice too.
Yes. I probably can't explain them all to you. Science is not my strong suit. Well, not the physical sciences anyway.
No, that's all right. I probably can figure it out.
And I can show, obviously, you, Dr. Adair, to the counselor's office. It's near main sick bay. But anything else?
I heard a rumor. Someone on this ship had real chocolates. I was wanting to get one rather than one of those, replicators.
Well, I suspect you didn't hear that so much as picked it up as a stray thought. But Captain Ryan isn't above bribing us all. As a way of keeping up morale. So yes, I think I can get you some nice. It has what do they call them? It has the nibs in it. Little crunchy bits. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's quite poisonous to occasion, so I've never actually tasted it. But you people seem to enjoy it.
I've never had real chocolate before.
They say that the real food is different, but replicator food molecularly is exactly identical to any of the real stuff that's, there.
But it's the texture. It's the texture.
You can really tell the difference of the texture. Okay, so we'll have to replicate some chocolate and then compare, because otherwise...
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Ellis, or Commander Ellis, have you had real Vulcan cooking? Because if you haven't, the replicator does not quite contain the spice on your tongue.
Yes.
I don't really eat spicy food.
Yes.
We'll get some spicy chocolate as well in this next. We'll put the replicator. We'll figure this out.
Well, I have to say, not to get off of the wrong foot, but I have to say, Dr. Ellis, I do disagree with you.
Oh.
Yes. Replicators are certainly sufficient to satisfy my nutritional needs, as they are for most humanoids, but nothing beats a fresh kill.
I just think that if they included a Heisenberg uncertainty filter, then the food quality would be much improved.
It's entirely possible. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but I believe you. All right, so let's have a chocolate, a real versus replicated chocolate blind taste test in the Arboretum first. That sounds like fun. So he will lead you. He will take you to a quartermaster. So there's a quartermaster's office near an interior cargo bay where various sundries. It is actually right near the armory. There is additional security. So there's an armory staff, and you ask to see a variety of things just to kind of check it out and familiarize yourself. There is also a green uniformed. So this is, black, but with a green top, as opposed to the typical red, or the red you would expect of tactical, or the gold that you would expect of security. And they carry themselves a little bit differently. They are carrying a sidearm, and you don't interfere, so they don't say or do anything, but they are very clearly on guard. And there is a partition, like another bulkhead that separates with a door that has additional security on it. So it is clear that there's some other munitions available, but this particular Marines officer looks like he is there to make sure that typical Starfleet personnel don't get their hands on it.
So, out of character, we all know there's a Marines division,
Yes.
right? Like in a general
Relatively
sense.
new.
It's
The
new.
Genesis spun up as part of, reincorporated as part of the kind of desperation around the Dominion War. So both the Starfleet Marines and the Starfighter Corps have been reconstituted. You just don't typically see them, nor do they have any reason to be present on like a Nova class.
Okay.
But yes, you probably also see some of the gray uniforms of pilots. So it looks like there is a Starfighter Corps presence as well as a Marines presence here, which probably, again, Lieutenant Ellis is the first to notice and probably makes you very uncomfortable. Because these are overtly military branches of Starfleet.
And also, I'm generally uncomfortable in the armory. And if anyone's like, did you want to practice one of these guns? I'll just feel like, no, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Dr. Adair probably just quietly no, or telepathically don't ask that question. They will accidentally shoot us all. No, it's fine. Yes, but you are, and in the time that you've left, since you've left the bridge, you've all been assigned command codes commensurate with your position on staff. So you, Lieutenant Commander Sorbach, can requisition basically anything that you want, except for a set of inventory that's not available to you. All right, so Armory, Quartermaster. Oh yes, Arboretum, let's go. So it goes over to the Quartermaster, who is another Jelruka, I think is his name. Another Bolian. So, actual real chocolate, right? Well, enough to share around. No, I'm not going to do that. You're only hearing one part of the conversation because he's being a little bit quiet. Don't make me report you. Thank you. And kind of excitedly, I've got the stuff, let's go. Just don't tell anyone I have a connection, or else they'll all come to me for it. So leads you down a couple of decks in towards the rear of the deck. Think like a 10 forward sort of arrangement, where like the rear facing wall is all slightly angled windows, except that it's a bit more of a bulge. So it's like the rear half of the ceiling, and then all of the rear facing wall is transparent steel or whatever, duranium. And you can see the glow of the swooped back nacelles. You can see a number of shuttles. You see some like very modern Type 9s. You see a Macaw class. And you can see a number of Valkyrie class fighters that are all making their way into the very extensive bays that the Capitoline has. Just another reminder that this is like, I mean, like there are Valkyrie class fighters that are stationed at Narendra for close proximity protection. And at first you think that maybe these are escorts, and then it's surprising to see, nope, they're actually here. So yeah, another thing that makes Dr. Ellis feel great.
Yeah. He frowns in pacifism.
Sorbach starts humming Flight of the Valkyries by Wagner.
Yes. Oh, I got that reference. Very clever. Yes, and he starts humming. It's very off-key. Caitians are not known for their musical ability. So he's a little, sorry, I'm tone deaf. So, temperate, arid. Oh, I should explain. Only about 50% of this is actual, real. It's mostly holographic.
Temperate seems nice.
Ooh, Shall we picnic? Shall we picnic on the savannas of Kate? I can introduce you to my homeworld.
Sure.
Sounds lovely.
Wonderful. And we'll lead you through what seems like the sort of very close, lush greenery that you would expect in like a greenhouse, like almost like in a Victorian greenhouse. There's like a water feature, there's some palms, there's some singing plants and some glowing plants, all kind of a riot all together. And we'll lead you through. It's only because you know what you're expecting that you realize that you've transitioned from some relatively small installation into a holographic extension. And then very quickly you exit through what looks to be almost like a little pergola, and then spreading out in front of you these vast grasslands. With in the distance you can see a herd of some sort of quadrupedal grazer. They are probably, well, I guess anyone with xenobiology probably has knows that they exist. The antelope and log. But very, very tall, long, spindly legs. Yes. Oh, our traditional food. Well, one of our traditional food sources. The necessity of being able to leap up and latch onto the jugular some 15 feet above the ground is why my people are so good at jumping. And with the teeth. Well, forgive me if I don't join you with the chocolate. I don't feel like a trip to the infirmary as a patient anyway. But enjoy. Oh, we are going to blind taste test. Does anyone have a blindfold? Computer, blindfold. And then one manifests in his head. So who's going to go first?
Well, Prince should go first, just so nothing.
So that I'm unbiased?
Correct.
Well, I've never had chocolate of any kind before, so. I mean, I've had the replicated stuff, I suppose, not the real stuff. I don't know.
It's like the same.
Oh, I was going to say, if you've never had it before, what if you think it's hideous? That would be really embarrassing.
What if I prefer the replicated stuff?
I know. That would probably also be embarrassing. We'll see, won't we? All right. You're first. And he will wrap a holographic blindfold around you, and then will, in his very, very large paws, he has the claws retracted, but you can as he grabs your hands, you can kind of feel the little points of them. Not pierce your skin, but you're aware that they're there.
Forbidden toe beans.
Yes. No one give her any hints. And you feel two little squares plunk into your hands. Try them quickly before they melt.
Okay, so I try the one that's in my left hand first.
Well, you will try both of them. I would like you to give me a insight science or medicine, your choice.
They're the same for me.
Okay.
Okay.
It is difficulty 3.
Okay.
Use of momentum.
I was gonna say, we have
important.
we have changed scenes, but we do have one momentum left.
I'm gonna use a momentum.
All right.
Okay.
I don't think you have culinary arts or any other focus that would necessarily apply.
No. I mean, technically, it's xenobotany to me, but...
I will allow it.
Okay, so what does the focus do again?
It means that your critical range expands to the value of your discipline. So your science. So if you get your science score or below, then that scores you 2 successes.
That's 4 successes. I crit.
Excellent. So you get that momentum back, which means I don't have to transition. You try it. It's not the flavor, but and you're trying to use your xenobotany to see, it's like, are there any phenols or something that I can detect? And then you realize, like, that would really work if I had a tricorder. I'm using my tongue. But you're able to figure it out. The distribution of the nibs in one of the samples is way more homogeneous than the other. Like you can tell, like as you're like tasting it, it's like, oh, one of these, it's like maybe the nibs are either buoyant or a little bit heavier than the chocolate. Like as it was cooling, they sank. And one of them, it looks like they were completely evenly like optimized distribution. So that is the clue that it takes for you to say, aha, this one, this is the real thing. And Father Shakura says, well done.
There's no way you could tell the difference. I'm next.
All right. Yes. And puts the blindfold over and then kind of like will lean over to you, Dr. Pren, and say, the packaging is identical. I don't really know which one is which. All right. Your turn, Dr. Ellis.
Okay.
Same roll. Unless you can argue for something else.
What was it again?
Insight, science, or medicine.
I'll do insight science. And I'll also spend that momentum because this is important.
Sure.
All right. 3 successes. You don't crit when you don't have a focus in it, right?
A 1 is always a crit. A 20 is always a complication.
Then I have 4 successes.
Oh, excellent. Yes. So you, I'm going to say it's not the exact same thing. Something with like, what are your focuses? We have planetary ecology.
I got evolutionary biology, climatology, xenobiology, sensors and tricorders, and seismology. Really nothing.
I think you're thinking about like, why is chocolate so appealing? And then you're thinking about like why humans and even others, you know, through convergent evolution, those for whom it's not toxic, all find it useful and attractive. And you're like, is it this? No, it's not just the sweetness. It's not just and in fact, it has a little bit of a bitter taste to it, which is typically a thing that we're evolutionary designed not to go after because bitterness is often alkaloids that are toxic. It's like, why? It's like, it's a combination of sugar and fat. So it's short-term energy and long-term energy, and fat is hard to come by in primitive society. So you're running through all this like evolutionary lens. And something about, although they're chemically identical, there's something about the fat in one of the samples that seems to satisfy that inner primate in a different way.
I'll be darned, they do taste a little different.
Told you.
Well, we're learning so much. Who's next? Does anyone else want to play?
I think Lieutenant Commander Sorbach. Only to be fair. You shouldn't be last.
I've never had chocolate, and I've heard it has mixed effects on my people. So I would
only have a little bit. I understand.
From this experiment.
You should at least take a taste of one of them. Take a taste of the one that Dr. Ellis thinks is the real one.
As a doctor, I have to mention that Sorbach might get tipsy off of this, and he is on duty.
It is not a proven effect, but I agree with you, Dr. Pren, that chocolate and Vulcan seems to have interesting effects.
Well, we could consider it a sacrament. There are a variety of religions where the partaking of a small amount of mind-altering substances considered to be holy.
I agree with that, but I am also on duty. So if we'd like to reconvene at a different time.
All right, we'll save you some. Although you could try it now. I would authorize it.
Yeah,
that just leaves you, Dr. Adair.
This would be a long occasion occurrence.
Yes. Like a baptism almost. So, Dr. Adair, you want to give it a try?
I don't need the blindfolded, but I will if it makes everyone else happy.
No, it's fine. I mean, they look exactly the same. I just thought the blindfold would be fun.
Adair looks around and just goes with it.
All right. Insight, medicine, or science?
I want her to not do it with taste. I want her to try to do it by feel of the package. if
Oh,
possible.
okay. I think it's still the same.
Okay.
I think it's still the same.
Ridiculous.
You're just
about it.
using different senses.
So I can use 3 dice, but I can spend that momentum.
Yeah.
I'll be
Yes, if you would like to spend the momentum to get a third die, you may.
I mean, like Misha said, this is important.
It is important, and unless another ship attacks us again, we're probably changing scenes and going to lose that anyway. So
That's true.
Don't give him ideas, Misha.
You said it was insight, right? Or something?
Yes.
I got 2 successes.
Oh, you are certain. I mean, you kind of like I'm going to taste them because it's delicious as chocolate. Although chocolate is not something that is part of the traditional diet of Beta Z. But
For a counselor.
yeah, but you're familiar enough with it. It's maybe a little bit sweet for you. I think it's not a cake. Like Betazoids love like cake, like icing and frosting. Like if it's going to be sweet, it needs to be sweet, sweet. Or like fruit. There's a variety of really lovely, very kind of perfumey, clean flavored fruits that are native to Beta Z. This is somewhere in the middle. It's like it's not as sweet as a sweet, and it's not as fruity as a fruit. So it's a little like almost muddy to your palate, but you understand why people like it. But most of the time you're like rubbing it and getting it all over your hands. And eventually you decide that just based on like viscosity, and maybe again, some of the irregularity of the composition, you have decided that one of them is the real one and one of them is fake. Of course you failed. But the good news is no one knows because they are identically packaged, because the packaging is replicated along with the actual chocolate. Well, don't we all feel better? Don't we all feel a bit more at home? Also, your hands are filthy now.
Yeah, I didn't realize the packaging would be so weak.
Yes. Computer, wet wipe. Here you go.
Sorbach's just cringing because Vulcans don't touch their food.
Right. And there's like some of you, because you were eating it blindfolded, you got little pieces of chocolate on your face, and Dr. Adair is like fingers covered in chocolate. It probably does not smell. It smells not super appealing to Sorbach. You know, Vulcans have extraordinarily refined senses of smell. Of course, so do Caitians, but so medbay. Anything else? I probably have already forgotten. We did your weapon thing. We did the chocolate thing and the arboretum. Oh, you can come in here at any time. Just remember, this is although it is holographic, it's not technically a holosuite. It is public. So, you know. I'm just saying it's not cleaned as regularly as some of the holosuites. So if there's any private activities that you would like to use the holosuite for, make sure it's one of the ones with a door.
So do you want to go hunting here or somewhere else?
Oh, yeah. It's not possible to turn off the safety protocols here.
Dr. Pren is like beet red. So red.
Adair just tries to like make the situation more awkward for Dr. Pren by just like saying because Adair needs you to break before the next bad thing happens.
I think Father Shakura probably does too. It's like, well, oh, yes. Have you tried the new RISA program? I've heard it's very popular.
Poor Dr. Pren has had to deal with so many people asking her how far the spots go. And she's just like sitting here feeling extremely awkward.
Oh, I've also heard that there's a Kobayashi Maru, but with Orions. Yes. Yes. The selling point is that it goes from a no-win to a win-win situation. I'm not quite sure how.
Dr. Prin is like going to physically move behind Alice and just kind of use him as a meat shield because she just like does not want. She's like removing herself.
Alice is also uncomfortable, but luckily he's perfected one defense mechanism, which is, well, we should probably continue on with the tour of the ship.
Yes.
I think the sensor array was another place we were gonna go.
Oh, yes, we should visit Astrometrics.
Yeah.
You probably haven't been aboard a ship with a full astrometric suite, have you?
No, not a ship.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Lieutenant Solar is almost certainly there. She's very, very skilled. Now, should warn you, it does incorporate, well, just the tiniest amount of Borg technology. Completely safe, or so they assure me.
Intriguing.
Well, it's one of the advantages. It's an extrapolation of the designs of 7 of 9. You know, the former Borg officer came back to the Alpha and Beta Quadrant with Voyager. Yes, but sensor efficiency and range is going to be pretty astounding for you, Dr. Ellis, even considering that the Nova class is nothing, is no slouch. This is, for those who are so inclined, I hear quite amazing. And you are led into what is very familiar from Voyager. Only that was a reclaimed science lab. This was purpose-built. So instead of just being a platform with some screens and the ability to project holographically, it is a spherical chamber with a cantilevered walkway out into a central kind of round platform with a variety of controls, and the entire, you can see hollow emitters everywhere, but also the entire surface is a high resolution screen. So you can get, Lieutenant Solar is there. She is not cold, but very sort of busy. Oh, Father Secure, I was just doing some simulations to see if I can clean up the resolution on our deep space scans. You're welcome to observe it. It actually looks a lot better from the central platform. So come along.
Mm-hmm.
Has someone been eating chocolate? Yes. Dr. Atier licks your fingers. She'll wave a hand and activate the display. So there's a variety of telemetry that will display on screens here, as well as on the surface, the inner surface of the sphere. But that combined with the holographic projections is, I think it's somehow richer than just a straight holographic projection. It is not it's not designed to be an aesthetic representation of floating free in space, or a 3D representation of sensor readings, because there's a lot of telemetry and additional scientific data that comes through. It is visually represented at a density that is probably a little bit, although 3 of you are very science oriented, it is a little confusing for all of you, including you, Dr. Ellis, because this is a particular discipline. And you can tell Dr. Adair and Dr. Pren probably pick up that Lieutenant Solar's eye motions are somewhat faster than maybe they ought to be. And you can tell that she is I mean, you're only picking up on the empathic state, but she is seeing this representation in a slightly different way than you are. It is clear that she is picking up, she's able to read it in a way that you are not. It's almost like, Dr. Adir, like a bit of a fugue state. Like her consciousness alters a bit. And you can tell that a massive amount of information is processing, and she immediately begins to work. She's communicating with the computer, overlay scans from this telemetry probe, clean up, remove the interference in the theta band, etc. And you can see that the area that she's focusing on does not only increase in resolution, but additional pieces of data begin to float in the three-dimensional representation. Anyone can give me a reason science difficulty 1. Yes.
I got 2 successes.
No, all of you can.
Oh, okay.
2 fails.
Okay.
2 successes.
All right.
2 successes.
Excellent. That's good. I'm going to say that nets you some momentum.
Yay.
You are seeing, you're not quite sure what you're seeing because you don't really have an orientation point. You think at first that it's natural to assume that the center of the display is where you are currently. And you try to orient yourself on, like, there's a pulsar over here. It clearly isn't. So because you don't have a center point, you're not quite sure what the frame of reference is. But after a little bit of studying, you are able to realize that you are looking at, first of all, a very, very high resolution scan of a significant portion of Romulan space. The area that she is working on clearing up is at the border of the Delta Quadrant. And the process that she's going through, because that the expanse, the Shackleton expanse, goes all the way up to the arbitrary, or near at least the arbitrary border between the Beta and the Delta Quadrants. That it's Herogen space. And the work that she's doing is apparently building a more accurate astrometric plot of that area of space and she is actively counteracting the effects of all the various different gravitational lensing and the interference from gravimetric disturbances, etc., to create a very, very high resolution star map of an otherwise only lightly explored area of space. And a significant portion of Romulan space. Tactically extraordinarily valuable information. Do you understand what you're saying? It's like she blinks, and although she doesn't move physically, it's almost like she slows down. It's like she was in like sped up, but she was standing still. So it was just like very, very subtle effect. And then she blinks a little bit. And do you understand? Is there anything you'd like me to explain?
No, not in particular. You're doing good work on cleaning this up. I haven't seen a system like this before. Yeah, this is a nice setup in this lab here.
Well, the bioneural gel packs help.
The what?
The bioneural gel packs help to process the massive amounts of data that's required.
Do I have a tricorder?
Yeah. Of course you do.
Scanning for bioneural gel packs.
You probably know what a bioneural gel pack is.
Oh. Then
they have begun to replace the old isolinear arrays. So it is a partially biological computer system. Pioneered on the Intrepid class.
Ah, that's why it's here.
Well, none of the conventional systems were found to be compatible with the necessary technology to operate this deep and high resolution scan. Not everyone is completely bought in on biological components of starships, but out of necessity. And the good news is that with Voyager's long experience, the challenges, the potential infection and things is now better understood. So we've been able to take some additional precautions. But the whole ship doesn't operate on bioneural. Only a few key systems for which it's required. Astrometrics, propulsion. Am I allowed to talk to you about propulsion?
Assume
Probably
you are not.
Oh, well, forget I said anything. Anything else? It's just that I have at least 47 more petaquads to calculate before we take off.
47, eh?
Yes. 47.63, but yes. I was rounding down.
Let me just wink at the people who are hanging out with us.
Adir makes a comment about all ships are technically bioneural ran. We all have brains. We're all running the ship ourselves.
I mean, philosophically, perhaps. But not all ships have bioneural circuitry.
Too much is all I mean.
Oh, no, that part's completely fine. It's just I'm going to get back to my scans. Pleasure to meet you all. She kind of, and Father Shakora is just kind of like, well, that was awkward. Where to now?
You seem to specialize in that.
Yes. I like to make everyone feel comfortable. Sometimes it's like, although we don't swim, I like to think of social situations as just, jumping into the deep end of the pool. The longer you spend sticking your toes in the water, the more difficult it becomes, the more you build up the anxiety in your head, the higher your blood pressure, and pretty soon that you're in sickbay. You don't know why with an ulcer. I just say dive in. Anything else? We saw the sensors. We saw your guns. Had the chocolate.
Sick bay.
Oh, yes, the first thing you said, sick bay. Well, hopefully they cleaned up the mess by now. We'll lead you into sick bay. It is massive. It is everything. It is higher quality than Narendra Station. It's not quite as large because it doesn't have to serve as big a population. It doesn't have as many waiting rooms. It doesn't have as significant outpatient facilities for sure. But in terms of like multiple surgical bays, it is bustling with activity. Variety of like active science stations, culturing labs, etc. Kind of organized in pods in a very, very large open laboratory to one side, and then several different alcoves full of bays. There aren't that many patients. And it looks like, there's someone sitting on a bed, but it looks like it's purely diagnostic procedure. The most of the activity, however, are some, specialists first class or below who are very assiduously sanitizing.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing you come in, she's quite short. She is maybe 5 feet tall. She is Regelian Jelna, so humanoid, but with like deep natural markings on her face. Not insectile at least, but just far outside the kind of humanoid norm. Has kind of grayish, like steel gray hair pulled back into a very tight, like maybe it was a bun, but it's kind of come loose. So there's like a piece kind of sticking out. She looks a little bit disheveled.
Yeah.
And she kind of, Shakura, what are you doing in my... Don't tell me you've caught this stuff. I don't want to deal with that. I have had a day. Oh no, Doctor. I've come to introduce our new staff members. Oh, this is Dr. Pren. She's also a chief medical officer. Maybe she's going to give you a run for your job.
Certainly not. I'm going to be on beta shift.
You're going to be on beta shift? Why didn't anyone tell me that? Who's making decisions about who's staffing my sick bay? All of a sudden, some stranger waltzes in and says that they're on beta shift. I'm going to have to talk to the captain about this.
I'm sure the captain's report is waiting for you to read. She briefed us just earlier today.
Did I ask you for anything, Red Shirt? I didn't think so.
No, you didn't, Doctor.
I didn't realize the Vulcans were so nosy and couldn't keep themselves out of other people's business. Anyway, I'm just messing with you. The look on your face is precious. And Father Shakur is like, she does this. It's most amusing.
Dr. Pren, giggles nervously.
Yes, I think the saying is she got you. Got him. Yes. Your rituals are so antagonistic, but also quite amusing. I think it's what they call a dominance display, but it's done with a kind heart. Trust me. Also, if she wanted you dead, she could kill you very easily, and almost certainly in ways that would be undetectable to censors. Not that she would you there? And, yeah, the doctor just kind of goes, well, I don't know you yet. Ha! I got her again. Look at her face. All right, you'll get along fine.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, don't worry about it. The worst you're going to have to deal with is a bunch of meatheads that get a little bit too excited in sparring. I mean, the Marines were reconstituted too late to really have a lot of impact in the war. So a lot of them are kind of itching to prove themselves. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If there was some sort of treatment for testosterone toxicity, I mean, if you can come up with that, I think you would win a prize. And it certainly would make our lives a lot easier. Yeah, so, but other than that, it's fine. Everyone's basically healthy now that there was a bit of an incident.
We heard.
Yes. Apparently some of the incidents decided they would like to try some gah.
Without
not replicated. Yeah, they were dared. This is what happens when you make friends with Klingons. They dare you to eat some gah. Yeah. I wouldn't put it past our ambassador to be behind the whole thing. You met her, right? Big Klingon lady.
She's...
Yes.
It makes an impression.
Yes. She's an ambassador. That makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because that's what you need when you want to have calm diplomatic relationships, specifically, and to negotiate complex, multi-layered, multilateral deals is a Klingon. Well, she hasn't eaten a wing yet. So I guess we have to thank ourselves for small blessings. Anyway, you all have your inoculations. None of you have, fevers or problems or parasites or brain worms or anything.
I scanned all of us this morning.
Ah, well, then you don't need me, do you?
No, I just wanted to see sickbay.
Yes, well, you're going to have a wonderful time. We have some very capable nurses here. I will be sure to tell them that you are very easy to fool, that you're quite naive. They're going to really enjoy having fun with you. Don't worry, we'll break you of that.
Thanks, Doc.
Couple of weeks in my sick bay and we'll be, kicking our heels up on the desk with a glass of whiskey. Just like it ought to be. Not on duty, obviously. But yeah. Of course. But feel free to drop in. You can come in before your shift. I can give you an orientation. I can assign a nurse to you. Walk you through some things.
Of course.
But you wouldn't be a chief medical officer.
Looks like more eager than ever at the mention of work.
Yeah. Plenty of things. Lots of boring dealing with hangnails and strained backs, I'm sure. But that's a lot of a doctor. It's better than mine, can I tell you? Oh, I used to work in the mines. I mean, I didn't used to work in the mines. I used to be a doctor for the people who worked in the mines. So, yeah. Nasty, nasty business. So,
A lot of lung ailments.
yeah, a lot of lung ailments, a lot of crushed limbs, internal bleeding. Yeah. Nothing like that happens around here.
Well, that's good.
Excellent. Well, don't be a stranger, I suppose. I'm going to go deal with some people who are pooping uncontrollably.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll come up with fun nicknames for them. You can help if you'd like. I'm happy to. I mean, doctor-patient confidentiality and all, but trust me, it was a very public scene at dinner last night.
Oh.
All right, well, nice to meet you.
Dr. Pren hides behind Alice again.
Okay. And Father Shakar, she's a gem, isn't she? She's one of my favorite members of staff.
Is everyone here so playful?
Well, of course. Although the ship is new, the crew is not.
I see.
Yes. We have new members, of course, but I don't want you to feel like you're an outsider by any means. Welcome into our family, but we've worked together for a very long time. We've had our own sets of adventures. So a certain degree of familiarity grows over time.
Of course.
And many members of the crew, with the exception of some of the Vulcans, of course, have a tendency to express their welcome to the family by kind of, remember what I said about jumping into the deep end, sort of imposing those fun family in-jokes and you know, village sort of behaviors on newcomers as a way of imprinting you into our culture.
Yes, I believe the humans call it hazing.
Yes, it's most amusing.
Yep.
Right.
I've read about this.
Yes.
It's definitely a thing.
Yes. It would be abusive if it weren't so humorous. But it isn't. It's done with the best of intent. Definitely not intended to produce Stockholm Syndrome.
Stockholm Syndrome. They haven't believed in that in centuries.
Anyway, I'm just joking. No, it's fine. We're just a strange crew. It's we're comfortable enough with each other to let our little foibles and personality traits out in the open. I think you'll find that most members of the crew are quite open and transparent, and let the fact that they show you their strangeness be a sign of their welcome to you.
Very well.
I, for example, had some difficulty when I first joined the ship many years ago. Well, specifically with those who have an attachment to small mammals.
Oh.
I mean, I'd read that many cultures keep pets, but I thought it was more like they raised them as a resource. I didn't understand the difference between like a cow and a cat or a dog. And I think the fact that we look like Terran cats had people assume that my relationship with small domestic mammals would be one of friendship as opposed to, well, eating them. So, there's so many jokes now. I can tell you it was a very uncomfortable week there. But we all got over it. And now we laugh about it.
Well, that's good to hear.
Anyway, so expect there will be similar, I hope for you nothing but to have similar embarrassing, humiliating experiences that are extraordinarily painful in the moment, but then weeks or months later you can look back at as the thing that really brought you closer together with your peers.
You know, usually I hope for just getting closer to your peers without the embarrassing, awkward experience part beforehand.
Yes, but I've seen you all together, and it's pretty embarrassing and awkward.
Oh, no.
So maybe try something new. What's the worst that can happen? It could be horribly painful and embarrassing, which is also the best thing that can happen. Trust me, I'm very wise.
There's a strange logic in his words.
Yes, there is.
It's too
Dr.
brute.
Pratt, do not look at me like that. I have served on warships before. Camaraderie goes well beyond standard procedure.
Yes. Yes, but you've been in a...
All ships I have seen battle are a warship.
Well, don't let some people hear you saying that, but... Like when you've literally had to fight off borders with no pants on, and you successfully repel the Jem'Hadar borders, and you've lived another day, then everyone starts laughing at the fact that you have no pants on. That's the moment that you remember. Especially if one of those people is me. Most people don't think a lot about, you know, Cation anatomy. It can be a bit of a surprise.
But Deer just points and laughs at Pren.
Yes.
I feel like Pren just keeps circling around Ellis, trying to hide from the latest person talking at her.
Yes. So have I overloaded you yet?
Can you show us to our quarters, please?
I believe Dr. Pren is ready to be poured into a bucket about now.
Yes. The answer to that question is then yes. All right. Well, that means that the worst part is over. Right? You can't possibly feel any more uncomfortable than you do now.
Oh no, the beds are going to be horrible, aren't they?
Oh no, they're quite comfortable. Oh no. We have the same amenities here as the new Ross class, yes.
Well, I hear that's kind of nice.
It's extremely nice. Yes, you thought that the first iteration of the galaxy was a floating hotel. It's quite nice. I mean, there's some other pieces, but yes. But I hope you apologize for me intentionally making you feel as uncomfortable as possible, but trust that it was with a purpose. You're going to have to do hard things potentially and make difficult choices, and you have just experienced great tragedy and loss. And I find that if you can break people out of that, get them in touch with just what it feels like to be just an awkward mess in the midst of a world that you don't understand, and everywhere you go there's something new and strange that seems like it's designed to make you feel uncomfortable and remind you of your otherness and separateness from those around you, that as soon as you have a moment to yourself, the pendulum swings back, and it creates an opportunity for you to feel that sense of connection, especially to those with whom you have shared those horribly painful, embarrassing experiences. So I hope that after this, you will find me to be one of your greatest friends and allies aboard ship. To your rooms.
Yes, please.
He will lope forward and will show you to your rooms. You are, although you are you're all relatively high ranked, Dr. Pren, you are stationed or crewed right next to everyone else. You are in effectively executive suites.
Oh.
And actually, as soon as you walk in, you're fairly certain these are diplomatic suites. Just because they're a bit larger, they have substantial workstations. There is like a little mini conference area, and each one of them has like a second bedroom, where like if a visiting dignitary had a personal assistant or staff. So it seems like a kind of wasteful use of space, but it is very, very swanky. Especially coming from a Nova class. You have replicators in your suites. You have windows. We'll say that you're on the starboard side. So you have a lovely view of Narendra Station. I mean, this is nicer than your temporary quarters on Narendra Station.
Mm. Dr. Pren is going to bring up the Federation database and research hazing rituals.
Yes, and most of what comes up is really horrifying. Because you're looking at like the literal definition and like the crime.
Yeah.
But then you realize it's not matching, and then you kind of go into a cultural database. And there are actually a variety of cultures. You think that's bad, the Klingons. However, it is from a cultural studies and from an anthropology perspective, it is a feature of warrior species and warrior castes within species. It is Father Shakora wasn't lying.
Yeah.
There is in fact a social and indeed a combat performance value of breaking barriers of propriety and those feelings of embarrassment and walking on eggshells, particularly when you are in a dangerous situation and you have to rely on others for your life and they have to be able to rely on you. There's something about it that not necessarily reassuring, and it's not at all a Trill custom. Maybe if you had a symbiote. Sorry. That might be something that, although that is maybe something that Pren would think. So I'm not just hazing you. But it does to Sorbach's point, make a certain amount of sense. It's also quite possible that Caitians just have no chill. Which you probably look that up and you realize, oh, they can be very reserved. They can be very fierce warriors. But when they are outgoing, they're very outgoing. I mean, they sniff each other's butts, basically. And they're just like, that's what we do, man. Deal with it. Like, why are you all so hung up? So yeah, you probably haven't had a chance to study Caitian culture in the past. And with additional study, you realize that his choice to be as overt is in fact very welcoming, because otherwise he would have been very reserved. So he made the choice to just kind of be big and out there. And probably without you expecting you to understand the cultural significance. But you are now realizing, oh, maybe he had a point. Also, super weird. Also, why were you fighting Geminar with her pants on?
Apparently, we're just used to commanding officers running around without clothing on, so...
It happens more than you think.
Well, and also you remember, like, you guys kind of hazed. You did something similar with your friend Arka Ravosk. And that did help to create a sense of bonding. You did laugh about it later, which then leads you to think about, I wonder where he is. I wonder where they are. I wonder if they're okay. And I think probably everyone is thinking that a little bit. Certainly Sorbach is thinking of probably nothing else. But since we're with Pren, I think the logical, like, flow of events leads to that. Leads to thinking about how you were just beginning to feel that sense of camaraderie and how sometimes it is the funny, embarrassing moments that break down the barriers between people.
It wouldn't have been embarrassing if you didn't get naked for no reason.
Yeah, but that's why it was funny. So I think with that, it's been a long day. You have... you have to report for beta shift. So you have some time to unpack your belongings. You can query the ship's computer for anything that you need or that you can't replicate. Obviously, get the deck plans, put them in a pad so you can't get lost. You don't have to deal with the further embarrassment by having to actually query the computer or ask another, like an actual crew member where something is. So you do the normal thing of getting settled in, just the slightly different smells, the slightly different sounds of a new ship, just the slightly different scale of the way it deals with spaces. The hull is thick because it's armored, unlike the Nova class. And so there's just getting used to those little small things that are different. And you report for beta shift. And for all of you, it is, you have a minder, you have a lieutenant or an ensign whose job it is to, show you where things are and get you up to speed on any protocols or any preferences by command staff. Show you any active projects. They're familiar with you. They know your specialties. They can certainly, obviously with Dr. Ellis, anything having to do with planetary systems or certainly a variety of massive amount of data, high resolution scans of habitable and near habitable planets from the neutral zone in Romulan space and in the kind of galactic northern section of the Expanse are available for your study, just in case there might be anything useful. You're all put to work. Sorbach is familiarized with the tactical systems. They are quite impressive. They pull a massive amount of energy. It has phaser cannons, which you have seen in operation only on the Defiant class. They draw a stupid amount of power, and this is a big ship. But it's not a warship. So
they say.
Well, but it's not designed as a warship. It's reasonably maneuverable, but it's no Defiant, right? It's not built like a warship. It probably immediately occurs to you that this thing has way too much power. Like it's like the phaser cannons are there because there's enough power for them.
Yeah.
But the power plant, both fusion and dilithium based or matter antimatter reaction, is way more than it needs.
He's very curious about that. Very curious.
Yes. Do you ask?
His first course of action is going to be finding whatever he can get, like technical documents he can get his hands on, which is probably not much since it was more than one crew member almost said something and then stopped. So I would imagine that the level of documentation is not even that far. So he's
well, you access the systems and you have a full readout of the traditional tactical systems, and you're just seeing lots of things like this. It's like regenerative shielding, which takes a lot of power. It has automatic phase rotation and a variety of things. Like it's a lot,
right?
And you go to query, power generation systems, and you basically ask the computer, and it requires you to input your command codes.
And you will.
You input the command codes because that's all it takes. You have, I will say, you don't have complete access, but you now have access to all of the information that you need about power generation and propulsion. The ship is equipped with a prototype quantum slipstream drive. All of that power
That
is
would answer many questions. Yes.
all of that
many
power is
questions.
required, not so much for the slipstream itself. There is a whole set of subsystems that you are maybe familiar with from a theoretical perspective, but the majority of that power is used to protect the ship, to create a stable quantum bubble around the ship as it transits. When that power is not being used, it is available for a variety of other systems. There are even theoretical specifications for ways to channel a massive blast of phaser energy through the main deflector, or through the main and navigational deflector. It is not something that is recommended because it's likely to burn out some relays or require significant recalibration. But there's enough power that the destructive potential of the ship is substantial, as are its science capabilities, as are its locomotive capabilities, its ability to travel significantly faster than standard warp. And all of this is at least theoretically familiar to you. I think the other thing that Sorbach would realize is all of that power is incredibly dangerous. It has been a long time since Vulcans were primitive enough to deal with something like a chemical rocket, where you're effectively sitting on a controlled explosion. And this is not scientifically or from an engineering perspective remotely similar technically. But
big upside, big downside.
There's probably a realization that this is a lot. There's a lot to play with, but there's a lot that could also potentially go very, very wrong. It is you never start on a Nova, so it's certainly the opposite of it's very different from the Shakar. That's a Miranda class. Those things have been around forever. They are tried and true. They are workhorses, and it had been upgraded as much as it could be upgraded. This is, and you could know those tactical systems inside and out. You could know that engine and the power distribution network inside and out, because it's from a different era. There's so much AI in this. There's so much automation that it seems like easier to manage because you can simply transfer power and all the subsystem balancing is managed by the computer. But it also means it is not as in control. Anyone else have scenes or things that they want to accomplish while they're on duty?
Nothing on duty, no.
Okay. Or after, before you retire for bed.
I want to go see Ellis.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to establish a time for us to eat dinner at least once a week in companionable silence.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's have a schedule here. We pull up our data pads and look at our duty schedule and it's like, okay, well this looks good.
Yes.
This day's night.
As you had gone to meet Ellis and having this conversation, you're interrupted a couple of times by people coming up and introducing themselves. Oh, welcome aboard. Glad to have you. The green uniforms, not so much. They tend to be very alert and standoffish. But unlike the Pioneer, where people were a little bit everyone there greatly valued their personal space because there was so little of it, because it was a teeny tiny sardine can ship. There's a very different culture aboard the ship. People seem much more open and gregarious and just like stand closer when they talk to you. But so far you haven't,
as best we can.
yes, but so far you haven't met any joy in Trill. So at least there's that, Dr. Penn. And Dr. Adair, your general, I mean, you meet a few people. No one comes in for counseling, but the overall level of self-confidence among the crew is significantly higher than you are used to. It is a largely veteran crew, which doesn't mean that there aren't problems, but it means that the problems are much more complex. Again, a significant change from what was effectively a training ship full of new recruits, new, very, very bright people who knew a lot, but maybe didn't have a lot of practical experience. There are probably people aboard who have similar practical experience to you, or some levels of practical experience.
So instead of like most of the people having PTSD, all of them have PTSD.
And have, yeah, and have had the therapy necessary to recover and to be effective again. So it's a very mature crew.
Don't worry, Dr. Deer. We're handling everything that happened to us just fine.
Right.
Right after you finish scheduling that our standing silent dinner dates, I'll take Dr. Prem with me over to Sorbach's quarters and knock on the door.
Come in.
Hey, how's it going? So you're off duty now, right?
Yes.
You want a piece of chocolate?
Want some chocolate?
I'll call a deer over too.
Yes. The doctors descend on Sorbach's quarters with a smile.
The doctors assemble. The doctors 3.
With chocolate. I think that's a lovely to be continued spot. As the doctors show up with, yes, we can help you. Chocolate time. So the credits roll. Post-credit scene. Everyone is asleep in their quarters.
Can I do something just before that?
Yes, go ahead.
Right before we've fallen asleep, I want a deer just to, as a joke, go over and knock on Pren's door and try to sound like the Cajun from earlier, just as like a midnight caller. And then she sees me, and then I laugh, and I go back to bed.
Okay. You're satisfied with yourself. So, something about that kind of foxhole camaraderie that maybe appeals to Dr. Adair. So you fall asleep with a smirk on your face. Pren just like puts a pillow over your face. It's just like, no.
She passes out from embarrassment.
Right. Maybe give yourself a little bit of a hypo spray. Just like, I do not want to really relive all this stuff in my dreams. Dr. Ellis probably, there's so much planetary data. Probably is like late into the night, eventually bleary-eyed goes in and lays down on the bed. Sorbach, I'm sure, meditates and goes through whatever rituals to still yourself.
Especially the chocolate, yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, you got a little woo. I'm going to say you likely find it difficult to achieve appropriate equilibrium because of the sense of urgency. And although you can achieve peaceful, logical function, you are having to exert a significant amount of internal effort to suppress the desire to just get out and pull the ship towards some location that you don't know. It's that part of you that it's under control, but you're not used to having to fight as much or work as hard to keep it under control. So when you hear your wife's voice, you at first think that it is a symptom of this struggle. And it's almost like you give up the meditation because and you blow out the candles, turn off the music, and begin to make yourself ready to bed. And you hear her voice again, calling your name. Dr. Adair. The last shot is Dr. Adair's eyes flashing wide open from deep sleep and sitting up, having become aware of a very powerful telepathic presence. You heard a voice, a familiar voice, calling, not to you. And behind that, you heard tens, hundreds, thousands of whispered voices. Now to be continued.
Ooh,
So much concern.
it's fine.
Is it fine?
It's a big cliff. Yeah.
It's not fine. But yeah, Sorbach had some chocolate, so that's fun.
That's why you don't get Vulcan's chocolate. That's,
Yeah, they just hallucinate their kind of dead wife's voice.
Oh, she's not dead.
With a million zombies behind her.
Yeah.
Not
Trapped in another plane,
not zombies.
trying to cross back over. It's fine.
I mean,
Yeah.
clearly it's the living city from the end of campaign 2 of Critical Role.
It might be. You might even at first think that it's the voices of the other members of the crew until you realize there's way more than 75 or 80 of them. It's thousands.
Something profits.
Immediately after the to be continued card pops up, Dr. Adair realizes what it was that she was hearing. And we'll find out what that was next time on Star Trek Pioneer.
Yay.
Yay.
We kept the name even though the ship is somewhere else.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
I was thinking that too.
When you're like, here's the second ship, and I was like, wait a minute. This is named after the ship we were in.
Yeah, it's still about the Pioneer. You gotta go find it before someone else does. Yeah, before someone else does. It's just that where you're going, a little nova can't take you. Cool.
But a supernova can.
I mean, that will take you somewhere. That would certainly resolve the current mission, just not in a good way.
Yeah, just a bit. I kind of like this new ship. We got some good digs on here.
Oh, you don't even know. It's so cool.
Can it go in water? I was wondering if it can go in water since there's more.
It's way too big, but it does have a variety. It has so many auxiliary craft that this would be perfect for like real long-term, long-range exploration. But particularly into like a dangerous area where it'd have to be like the Galaxy class, right? Only the Galaxy class was just science, big guns and shields. This is science, big guns and shields and armor. Because
propulsion.
Yeah. Well, because the Galaxy is danger enough. I mean, you've got the Dominion, and Dominion can take out a Galaxy class all day long. They might have a hard time with a fleet of Vesta classes, and they wouldn't be able to catch them. It has chevron separation.
Ooh.
Yeah. So like the whole front thing, kind of a V shape, comes off. If you're not familiar, Google Star Trek Vesta class. It's so pretty. It's a fan design, I think, but it was canonized in some of the beta. Like the fact that Ezri Dax is a captain of the Aventine is from beta canon. There's a couple of novels. There's a whole trilogy, I think, of novels.
I haven't read that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
The most like space dynamic spaceship would be a cube. So the Borg have it figured out.
well, maybe we'll learn something about that. Maybe not. I can guarantee you that the next ship you see is not going to be a Borg cube. For sure. Don't worry about it.
Oh.
It's going to be a Romulus.
No. Anyway, well, thanks for being here and also for being patient because I was sick last week. And thanks for being willing to bring in 2 characters, and I really love the connection and the opportunity to play with that piece of backstory integrated into the main story. And we'll see if Sorbach is able to reunite with his wife. He probably will be able to.
Hopefully in this life and not the next.
Oh no, it'll probably be in this life. It'll be fine.
I mean, Vulcans live forever.
Yeah. It'll be totally fine.
Totally fine.
There are no more surprises. It's all going to be laughs and pie eating contests and square dances and holodeck episodes from now on.
Oh, sounds great.
Yeah. This is we've transitioned to lower decks.
Is
Now
that
we're married men. Yay.
I am not a merry man.
You will be by the time this arc is done. That is my goal. Actually, yes. I make a prediction and then forget that I said this. I make a prediction that by the end of this arc, you will have become a merry man.
Okay. Good luck.
Or,
Don't
well,
worry,
a merry
flipped,
person.
So it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So are we running into Q anytime soon? So was that...
No. Q is Deus Ex Machina. I have a different type of Ex Machina in mind. So many threats. Cool. Let's do the thing where you tell people who you are and where they can see you next. Same order.
Hi, I'm Hell. You can see me tomorrow on my own channel, Hell Hath Some Fury. I'm going to be playing Elden Ring. I'm definitely not going to get destroyed by bosses repeatedly.
I'm Misha _lesson3 here on Twitch. If I don't stream, you can look at my Twitter if you want, which is Misha Weha. That's Misha with a WEHA at the end. Will see me next is probably doing more Star Trek whenever we schedule the next one.
Next Thursday. At least that's the plan.
Yes. Yep. Rith.
I am Rith. You can find me here and pretty much only here. I don't stream myself, but I do like to support the other members of the C+ content community. So you might find me cheering on Hell in her many, many deaths, and also Mr. Tice TV. I am contractually obligated to follow him. So yeah.
And
Kelly?
I'm My Fair Kelly. I sometimes stream. My new job makes that very difficult. So most of my days off are here on C+ content, which I will be back here on Tuesday to do the second episode of the second campaign of Spectrum Squad.
Yes.
You know, we could make that easier to say.
Prison Pals is easier.
Prison Pals is far easier. Or
Yes.
or what was it? Chaotic Colors.
Chaotic Colors, yeah. Crayon Crew.
No one liked that.
Yeah.
I like Crayon Crew.
Where we're also going to die horribly in space, probably.
That too, which apparently to my DM who just said, that's my fault.
Right? Everything is your character's fault in that particular game. It's fine. Yeah, and I'm Zero or Zero Daylight or Admiral Zero. And you can catch me a couple times a week here, writing or sometimes playing games. And not this Sunday because it is a holiday. I think we're picking back up on Sunday evenings at the Juices TV program and Lissa T channels, doing variety TTRPG stuff on the 4th. So took a little break because calendars and me being sick and a bunch of stuff. But and this weekend is Easter. And some people have kids who like expect to do things on Easter. Ugh, whatever. I know. But we'll be back on that as well. So if you want to catch up with us, probably the best thing to do is, if you don't currently follow here, you can just click that button. That'd be awesome. You can also head over to cpluscontent.tv, which is our YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to that, which is free, and hit the little alarm bell. So you can be notified when there is new content. Everything we broadcast live here makes its way over there about 24 hours later, unless YouTube is being weird, because I record these locally and the files are quite large, and sometimes it takes a while for it to process. And if you are curious about, so that's like if you want to see like the previous series of Star Trek Pioneer and find out about the people who are missing and why we missed them, and check out our other sci-fi stuff, our other spooky stuff, our other fantasy stuff. That's the best place to do that. And you can also connect with us at community.cpluscontent.tv, our Discord channel. And you can talk to a bunch of nerdy people about a bunch of nerdy TTRPG stuff and share pictures of your dice and your book collections, which is the thing now, and get a look at what we have in plans for the weeks and months to come. So you are welcome to join us in any and all of those locations. We are supposed to raid someone, and I have changed all of my views. So I don't get to see, like, I, for the first time ever, know how to get myself into mod view. I just don't know how to get myself out of it so that I can actually see who is up and actually also streaming at this point. So I will take some suggestions. Ah, there we
You're
go.
muted.
Let's see. Who is available?
I was unprepared for this
That's
question.
well, I wasn't thinking about it either, and I realized, oh, I can't. I actually just, I've opened up another window, so I can see.
There's someone playing Dungeons and Dragons on my list.
Oh, who is that?
R Phase P. It's R, the letter Phaze.
Are they good? Do you like them? Are they friends?
If I follow them, they're friends of somebody.
Okay.
But
Okay, well, it's either that, it's D&D.
they have 500 followers and they have 16 people watching.
I would say that works perfectly fine. We also have Diesel Shot. They are doing Change Stars, which is kind of a sci-fi, which is also sci-fi. So do we want D&D or do we want sci-fi?
Sci-fi.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we are going to go then raid Diesel Shot. I am connected to them on Twitter. And one of their players is also a creator that I like a lot. And they only have 8 viewers, so heading over there will be a cool, fun raid for them. So yeah, did anyone drop in the raid calls? Yes. So if you are a sub, go ahead and grab the one with the Oh Well die and the Ahoy Whale and the Hype Unicorn. If you are not, which is, by the way, totally cool, because I don't do this for money, you can go ahead and grab the one with the shrug emoji. Drop those in when we raid over, show them some love, listen in to their fun sci-fi / cyberpunk game, if I recall correctly, from Change Stars. They are cool people. Show them the love, drop them a follow, and we will see you back here on Saturday for the first episode of Cobbles and Plank Irregulars, which is a D&D limited series set in the same universe, kind of like a spinoff of our long-running D&D campaign with Juice and Lissa and Meg. So see you then. Bye, everybody.